You are listening to the audio production of Fear Unmasked, Discovering the Truth of the Coronavirus Shutdown by Clay Clark. Published by Fed Books. Music provided by Colton Dixon. And this book is being read to you by me. I'm Clay Clark. And if you hear cats in the background or my kids playing piano, it's because I'm recording this book while surviving the quarantine, the government-mandated quarantine. So I'm recording this book from my house. Introduction. Education is the key to unlock the golden door to freedom. George Washington Carver. Close your eyes and picture for a moment a place and a time where America has completely stopped. Our once bustling streets are now empty. The Starbucks drive-thru no longer has the standard 10-minute line wrapped around it. And Chick-fil-A is no longer packed Monday through Saturday. Picture a weird parallel universe where the streets of Los Angeles have no traffic. And the only drama being reported about the NCAA's March Madness is that it was canceled. Visualize walking through the nearly always 24-hour energetic and urgent Times Square without running into a single person other than the occasional police officer who has been assigned to go out patrolling to make sure that you're not violating that ever-changing social distancing protocol. Unless you've been living under a rock, you cannot help but to see and hear the fear-inducing coronavirus updates relentlessly raining down upon your head. It's confusing. It's unprecedented. You've probably heard the coronavirus word 100 times in the last week, and it seems like no one really knows what's going on. Just yesterday, you heard that 2.2 million beloved Americans are predicted to die from the contagious coronavirus. But yet today, you've heard that less than 200,000 Americans are predicted to die. Or are 60,000 Americans predicted to die? It seems like the number gets lower every day. Should you be worried or should you be relieved? Things change every day, and it seems like no one knows what's going on. And you can't leave your home. As I drove to the gas station yesterday to fill up my wife's Suburban with unleaded gas that is now at the coronavirus-caused ultra-low price, I could sense panic and fear everywhere. The man filling up his large Ford F-350 with gasoline was wearing a mask, and the streets were eerily empty. In fact, the people who were actually desperate enough to go out and buy the food and the goods they needed were going in and out of the gas station while practicing social distancing. So it was awkward to watch them walk past each other while trying not to touch one another and while still being kind. Since mid-March of 2020, our federal and local governments have been pushing us, pleading us, and mandating us to stop the spread of the virus with the same intensity and focus that I used to employ as a kid to avoid the physical contact with the cute girls in the first grade because of the cootie virus that I knew that all girls had. Page 9. Even as I briefly isolated myself from humanity to write this book, I cannot escape the fear-inducing messages being pitched at me from every direction. Even now, when I sit in my man cave to write this book about the coronavirus, I do what I always do when I write a book. I shut the door and prepare for uninterrupted focus on the research and writing task at hand. However, this time, when I turn on the orchestral Beautiful Mind soundtrack on Spotify, my focus is constantly being interrupted by Spotify, letting me know what steps they as a company are taking to combat the spread of the coronavirus. During the past 30 days, as I have been researching and gathering the data for this book, I have been relentlessly interrupted by CNN, Fox News, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, the Weather Channel, and that one store that I bought socks from once, and nearly every other business and platform with a relentless reminder of the dangers of the coronavirus pandemic. And when those platforms are not reminding me to be worried and to live in fear, the physical billboards that I see around town en route to the grocery store remind me to wash hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds to prevent the spread of COVID-19. However, I can sincerely tell you that after I invested the 100-plus hours of time needed to gather the facts to write this book, I no longer experience any feelings of fear when I'm interrupted by or alerted to the breaking news related to the spread of the COVID-19, which is why I am writing this book. I'm writing this book so that you will no longer live in the perpetual fear caused by being pelted with an unrelenting barrage of social media posts, alarmist media headlines, and rumors of somebody you know who knew somebody else who knew somebody who died as a result of getting the coronavirus. Whether it is the right-wing media, the left-wing media, or your social media that is fueling the flames of fear, I know that many people, and even potentially you, are currently living in a constant state of fear. This book is going to provide you with the facts and the information that you need to be empowered to act as needed and to leave behind the emotions of fear that have preceded. I'm going to cite statistics for you, and I hope you realize everything is cited with the credible media sources that also incite fear. The same media outlets feeding you the fear are also providing you enough actual factual statistics if you read between the lines. However, if you only actually read the headline of an article, you might miss that part. Page 11. Idleness truly is the devil's workshop. And many quarantined Americans are idle right now and are unsure of what to do with their downtime. So for the same reasons, people like gossip and spreading rumors in the office break room, people who are now stuck at home are simply spewing their fact-free fears on Facebook and other social media platforms for all of the world to see. Whether it be for reasons that are either conscious or subconscious, many Americans are trying to pass the time by writing increasingly alarming posts, which leads to more shares in online debates and social interacting during this time of social distancing and emotional distancing. Ironically, in this world of constant digital connectivity, people were already feeling lonelier and more isolated than ever, even before the coronavirus panic. Think about the last time you went to a restaurant before the coronavirus shut most of them down. Were the people at the restaurant looking at each other or their smartphones? The start of being physically present but completely mentally absent began with the omnipresence of your smartphone. Nielsen reports that now the average person in America is spending 11.3 hours per day consuming media. The ability for fear to spread virally via smartphones is new to us all. Consider this. In 2009, the swine flu infected 60.8 million American people and killed, folks, think about this, it killed 12,469 people. But it did not cause the widespread panic and complete government shutdown of America. Why? And why don't most people even remember the swine flu outbreak? Social media and smartphones were relatively new at the time of the outbreak. And I think this played a huge part in the lack of general hysteria. I'm writing this book for you because as a husband and a father of 5 kids and an owner of multiple businesses and the host of the chart-topping Thrive Time Show Business podcast, I have literally interacted with thousands of people just like you over the phone, via email, and through social media who have become paralyzed by the fear caused by not knowing the facts related to the coronavirus panic. As I've lived my life, I've found that logic-killing fear is often related to not knowing the truth about the dangers we face. Consider this. In 1992, the NBA superstar basketball player, Karl Malone, one of my favorites, refused to play basketball on the same court as Magic Johnson for fear of getting HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. The famous Greek philosopher, Socrates, or if you want to mispronounce his name, you could call him Socrates. Socrates was sentenced to death by hemlock poisoning in 399 BC for questioning the merits of the prevalent religion of the time for fear he would corrupt the youth and cause an end of the world, as the Greeks knew it. Jesus was convicted of treason and was crucified at just the age of 33 for fear that he and his message would destroy the Roman Empire. Many people ignorantly supported legal segregation for fear that African Americans would take jobs from non-African Americans and would ruin American life as we knew it. Fear is an unpleasant emotion that is caused by believing that the future is going to be worse than today. And something or someone is that direct threat to you or has the ability to hurt you. Fear kills joy, extinguishes hope, reduces your ability to think logically and to sleep. When you are wondering if a serial killer is in your basement, it makes it hard to sleep. When you're wondering if you forgot to turn off the oven, it's really hard to enjoy your beachside tropical vacation. When there is fear, there is no peace. Now, before we go any further, I do have to make a big ask from you. Yes, a big ask. Yes, I realize that we've just met, but could I have your undivided attention for the next 2 hours, please? Let me try that again. Could I have your undivided attention for the next 2 hours, please? Pretend that reading this book is like going to your favorite theater before the quarantine began, and you are being asked to turn your phone off, or at least to turn your phone on to airplane mode as you watch that feature presentation. I promise if you will give me 2 hours of your time, I will give you some much-needed peace, hope, and maybe even joy as you realize how bad the coronavirus is and isn't. Throughout the course of this book, I promise that I will provide you the following panic-killing and fear-reducing benefits. 1, you will no longer worry about who the virus can kill because you will have the facts. 2, you will no longer worry about the economic fallout related to the coronavirus because you will know the details related to the government's response. 3, you will no longer feel the need to glue your face to your devices, sifting through the doomsday headlines and political agendas of either party to find the facts that you and your family need to be safe during this weird time. 4, you will no longer feel the need to debate with the soul-sucking fear-mongering and end times prepping people on social media. 5, you will find yourself 100% uninterested in going down the Google search black hole of runaway conspiracy theory research. 6, you will take advantage of this downtime and you will start crossing things off of your to-do list and that you've been putting off because you've been previously saying to yourself you didn't have the time. Recently, I interviewed Patrick J. McGinnis, who is a successful venture capitalist and the creator of the word FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. Long before the coronavirus panic, the fear of missing out became a huge problem for people in this world. It is a big part of the reason why we are addicted to our smartphones. We don't want to miss anything. So Psychology Today now reports that the average person is interrupted an incredible 100 times per day with smartphone notifications. That's a lot of interruptions. So while I do understand that just the act of turning off your smartphone long enough to invest 2 hours needed to learn something you need to know about the COVID-19 problem could cause you to experience fear, I think it will cause less fear in the long run as we dismantle the panic around the coronavirus. You might be thinking, but what if I miss the big call? But what if I miss the big news update? What if the supplier of the custom Darth Vader mask that I ordered to protect myself from the coronavirus calls me to confirm my hat size? My friend, to make this deal fair, my new friend, to make this deal fair, I promise you that I am going to write one hell of a book that is filled with everything and only everything that you and your family will need to know to be able to live without fear during this worldwide coronavirus panic.
And I can't seem to get this feeling off my mind, out my mind. 'Cause moments fade and seasons change.
Chapter 1. The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Adolf Hitler once said, "If you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently enough, it will be believed." Fear is the mind killer, says Elon Musk. How did we get into this situation? In 2019, the world was introduced to a new version of an old disease, the coronavirus, or COVID-19, as it has come to be known. In the phrase COVID-19, the CO stands for corona, the VI stands for virus, and the D stands for disease, and the 19 refers to the year it was recorded to have started. Whether it is coronavirus 4, or coronavirus 8, or coronavirus 19, coronaviruses come from a large family of viruses that are common in people and many different species of animals, including camels, cattle, cats, and bats. Oh my. And while there has been debate over how this disease originated, we know that COVID-19 originated in China, and for a while it was little more than a story with few details reported infrequently by the mainstream media. However, as America was going about its business and growing the economy at a record-setting rate, Neil Ferguson, the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, was working on a model. Who was working on a model? Neil Ferguson, the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, the head of the Department of Infectious Disease Epidemiology. That's easy to say. Why don't we all say it together? Epidemiology.
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 And why don't we all practice also saying Neil Ferguson? We need to say Neil Ferguson's name 5 times, and that way we can get his name clearly cemented in our brain. Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson.
Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
Neil Ferguson.
This game is awesome. Can I try?
Sure. Why don't you give it a try?
Neil Ferguson.
Okay, back to Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson is the head of the Department of Infectious Disease Epidemiology in the School of Public Health and the Vice Dean for Academic Development in the Faculty of Medicine, all at Imperial College, London. He released a projection in February 2020 that would become the fear that the coronavirus pandemic needed to go viral on social media and traditional media. Neil Ferguson projected that 500,000 citizens in the United Kingdom population would die from this new disease, and that the United States alone would experience a shocking 2.2 million deaths. Once the world began to learn of Neil Ferguson's predictions, they forgot his name, but they remembered his model. The right-wing, the left-wing media, they fanned the flames of fear related to the pandemic panic, and these headlines then turned into an all-out dumpster fire of panic as people started sharing these fears and the doomsday predictions on their personal social media accounts. Because the average person now spends over 11 hours a day consuming media on their smartphone. It took only hours for this coronavirus to grow dangerously viral on its own. Quickly, people began to hoard toilet paper and essential food items in preparation for the worst-case scenario presented by, what's his name again? Neil Ferguson. Why was toilet paper hoarded? Does the coronavirus cause diarrhea? No. But as a general rule, fear and panic kills humanity's ability to think critically. Having a rational phone conversation with somebody while they are sprinting for their life in Spain's running of the bulls. It won't go well. Try teaching somebody about the merits of abstinence while they are currently engaged in having sex. It won't go well, and it's awkward. Without really knowing how the coronavirus would impact the amounts of death in our country, our elected officials decided to let the fear of the unknown dictate their actions. Beginning with Dr. Deborah Birx. Deborah Birx? Who is Dr. Deborah Birx? Dr. Deborah Birx is the coronavirus response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force, which is the one who called for the president to shut it down. Shut it down? Surely our president can't shut it down. The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, then stated during a press conference, what we did was we closed everything. That was our public health strategy. Just close everything down. If you rethought that or had the time to analyze that public strategy, I don't know that you would say quarantine everyone. I don't even know that that was the best public health policy. Young people then quarantine with older people was probably not the best public health strategy because the younger people could have been exposing the older people to an infection. Wow. Self-quarantining and shelter-in-place became mandatory, and immediately Americans had all lost their constitutional rights to peaceably assemble in order to keep you safe from the coronavirus. To make your life 3% easier, I have included the First Amendment from the controversial document that millions of brave men and women have fought to protect since September 17th, 1787. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. All of a sudden, church congregations were not allowed to peaceably assemble. Most Americans were forced to stay home, and non-essential businesses were forced to close in order to keep you safe from the coronavirus that Neil Ferguson predicted might kill 2.2 million Americans. In states like Oklahoma, abortion clinics, liquor stores, and marijuana dispensaries were deemed to be essential, while hair salons, physical fitness gyms, retail stores, and other businesses were deemed to be non-essential. Now, many Americans are forced to stay at home and wait indefinitely for this virus to run its course. In Proverbs 16:27, through verses 27 through 29, the text reads, "Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Idle lips are his mouthpiece. An evil man sows strife, gossip, separates the best of friends. Wickedness loves company and leads others into sin." And that is exactly what idle Americans are doing. In fact, Newsweek reported that U.S. alcohol sales increased by 55% in just 1 week. What? In just 1 week amid the coronavirus pandemic lockdown. And U.S. News reported that the coronavirus pandemic has boosted marijuana sales, while many businesses are forced to be closed or are struggling. When Americans are not out busy increasing their consumption of alcohol and marijuana, many have decided to invest their free time to post their pontifications about the coronavirus on social media. In our digital world, it literally became impossible to turn on any media-serving device without being bombarded by the panic-filled headlines. Only after things got out of hand and panic became the default setting of Americans anywhere did Neil Ferguson update his predictions. Neil Ferguson adjusted his predictions to predict that the coronavirus will now cause 20,000 United Kingdom deaths, down from his first predictions of 500,000 predicted deaths. He's now toned down his prediction of U.S. deaths from 2.2 million. Now we're predicting 61,000 deaths, which means that Neil's early predictions were, 25 times too high. Oops. If you were Neil Ferguson, what would you be saying right now? Oops. Neil Ferguson's latest prediction of 20,000 United Kingdom deaths implicates that the Americans, that would be us, should likely expect 88,000 deaths to be caused by the coronavirus, not 2.2 million deaths. To put this in perspective, America lost 80,000 people from the common flu in 2017-2018 alone. And that number included 180 children, according to the Center for Disease Control. Let's take a moment to take in some facts. The coronavirus is 25 times less deadly than Neil Ferguson originally predicted. And according to the University of California, Berkeley epidemiologist, Dr. Arthur Reingold, I'm quoting, "Children don't get very sick when they get the coronavirus. If they develop any symptoms at all, they're mild. So severe illnesses and death are incredibly rare." And according to reports published by CNN, out of 731 confirmed and 1,412 suspected cases of COVID-19 in children in China, one child, a 14-year-old boy died. We now also know that 99.2% of those who actually died from the coronavirus in Italy were elderly and already had compromised immune systems. Since this pandemic began, I have received dozens of text messages, breaking news alerts, and emails full of COVID-19 propaganda. And I have talked to many frightened friends and family members who all believe that the end of the world was near. I can't even have a conversation with them on a daily basis because fear is ruining their ability to think rationally. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt once famously said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." And in today's current crisis, he could not have been more correct. However, I think this quote can only be outdone by Benjamin Franklin's famous quote, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety."
God only knows you've tried to fight it. It's just a wolf who's always lying.
Chapter 2, Fear Unchecked by Facts. Because of the fear-mongering media and the grossly overstated reports from our good friend Neil Ferguson. Remember that name, by the way, Neil Ferguson. Write that name down. Remember the name, Neil Ferguson. We shut down our economy and forced non-essential businesses to shut their doors. This was a grave mistake, no pun intended, and the numbers below show why our leaders should have kept the world open for business. The only reason why our leaders closed the world was because of the sheer public panic resulting from inflammatory, misleading, and alarmist reports by news organizations, as well as misinformation in the communications of our country's leadership with the public. At the time President Trump issued the social distancing and other guidelines, March 16th, 2020, the worst widely reported case for shutting down the world was the fear that there would be an estimated, wait for it, by the way, we're on page 26, an estimated and predicted 510,000 deaths in the United Kingdom, and some estimated and predicted 2.2 million deaths in these great United States, as detailed in a report by the Imperial College produced by Neil Ferguson. But should we ask ourselves, even if that happened, should the country shut down? Fear unchecked by facts. That's the only reason why the country shut down. According to the Center for Disease Control's data from 2017, one person dies every 6 seconds from the top 10 leading causes of death, whether from heart disease, traffic accidents, medical malpractice. On average, 5,703 people die every day. This was all before the coronavirus, and irrespective of the coronavirus, we do not shut down local, citywide, regional, national, international, or world economies because of it. There's no reason to kill our economy by shutting it down solely based on these fears. Why didn't our fearless leaders convey these facts while communicating with the public? This unchecked sensationalism comes with a real consequence. Trillions of dollars in damages lost by small businesses and trillions of dollars in stimulus by the U.S. government, which already has $323 trillion in debt, and it grows by the second. Not compelling? How about those killing themselves exceeding coronavirus rates in some places? The fact is, there are different numbers, projections, clickbait stories, and expert opinions being shared every single day. The whiplash of the media and government is disorientating. And all of the confusion causes more fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of leaving the house, fear of going back to work, fear of visiting your lake house if you live in Michigan. Here is a brief timeline of the coronavirus pandemic to show just how much things can change from one day to the next. Different leaders and experts are saying different things and giving misleading information, which is causing Americans to suffer. February 25th, 2020, an expert in disease research said, "Don't shut down the world for a virus. I don't think the answer is shutting down the world to stop this virus. It's already out," said Michael Osterholm, director of the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy. Later in the article, Mr. Osterholm said, "Trying to stop influenza-like transmission is like trying to stop the wind. It's virtually impossible." What? I can't stop the wind. This changes everything. March 13th, 2020, the epidemic experts predicted that up to 1.7 million U.S. residents could die. The New York Times reported that officials from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and epidemic experts from all around the world had gathered. They'd gathered, by the way, we're on page 28, on a conference call the previous month to explore worst-case scenarios for the coronavirus toll. The CDC modeled 4 scenarios and estimated that 200,000 to 1.7 million U.S. residents could die. March 16th, 2020, the White House task force started issuing social distancing guidelines. Dr. Deborah Birx herself referenced the British report, the Neil Ferguson report, at a coronavirus task force press briefing, where the Trump administration announced that it would issue more restrictive social distancing guidelines. Birx said the White House task force recommended limiting gatherings to fewer than 10 people, consistent with the British Neil Ferguson report made public that same day. March 19th, 2020, the shelter-in-place orders start. First in California, the governor ordered residents to stay at home unless absolutely necessary to go to the grocery store and other essential errands. Then more states followed suit. March 24th, 2020, President Trump says we should never turn the country off. President Trump says, well, you have to make the, changing pages, decision. Look, we lose thousands. I brought some numbers here. We lose thousands and thousands of people a year to the flu. We don't turn the country off, every year. Now, when I heard the number, we average 37,000 people a year, can you believe that? And actually, this year we're having a bad flu season. But we lose thousands of people a year to the flu. We never turn the country off. We lose much more than that to automobile accidents. We didn't call up the automobile companies and say, stop making cars. We don't want cars anymore. We have to get back to work. March 26th, 2020, the director of NIAID says the overall consequences of COVID-19 will be akin to the flu. Fauci writes in the New England Journal of Medicine, if one assumes that the number of asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic cases is several times as high as the number of reported cases, the case fatality may be considered less than 1%. This suggests that the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza, the flu, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%, or a pandemic influenza similar to those in 1957 and 1968, rather than a disease similar to SARS or MERS, which have had, changing pages, I got to work on my transition, page 30, case fatality rates of 9 to 10% and 36% respectively. March 30th, 2020, Trump has a change of heart and decides to keep containment measures in place. The New York Times reports, the president's reversal on restoring normal life by Easter came as polling showed that voters overwhelmingly preferred to keep containment measures in place over sending people back to work prematurely. President Trump was struck by the Political survey that indicated that the public wanted the restrictions to continue long enough to beat the virus back, for fear that letting up too soon would simply reinvigorate the outbreak. The honest truth is that the media and our leaders make matters worse by issuing misleading reports, with different reports and changes being made every day. It is hard to keep up with and concerning that no one seems to know what's going on. While headlines may be true and facts reported by the media may be true, they do not always tell the whole story, which puts the country at large into a panic and the world economy is at risk. Check out a few of these inflammatory headlines. When read out of context, these headlines leave people like you panic-stricken. Why? Because a simple fact is missing. People in the U.S. are dying at a rate of one person every 6 seconds anyway, regardless of the coronavirus. Folks, keep that in mind. One person dies every 6 seconds anyway, regardless of the coronavirus. It's all relative. New York Post headline. Check this one out. The coronavirus killing people in New York City at a rate of 1 every 17 minutes. The Today.com headline. Number of U.S. coronavirus deaths now exceeds the 9/11 death toll. Fox News. White House projects 100K to 240K coronavirus deaths as Trump tells U.S. to prepare for very painful 2 weeks. This just in. Fear and panic are contagious, and the media is spreading fear to everyone. These headlines aren't communicating the facts. They're instilling fear. Now that you have seen the progression of the fear and the panic that was created by the media, we need to ask ourselves an important question. The question is, who is the coronavirus really killing?
I'ma go where the spirit leads you. Ain't nobody stopping me. I'm on my way, I'm a wanderer. Till I found my place, I'm a wanderer.
Chapter 3. Who is actually at risk? As we take a look around at our country, we can clearly see that there's panic everywhere. From young to old, from sick to healthy, there's a lot of widespread fear. I was at Walmart picking up several necessities this morning, and most of the people around me looked like they were doctors heading in for surgery. They had gloves and face masks and were sterilizing their grocery store carts literally from top to bottom. As we funneled into the store, everyone was looking around nervously, staying at least 6 feet away from one another. I was dressed in my standard clothing, absent of gloves and a face mask or any form of Lysol cleaner. You would have thought that I was the one that was dressed up funny. You should have seen the way everyone looked at me with looks of judgment and just fear. However, what they probably didn't know was that I had just read an article discussing the coronavirus and the personal protection equipment. According to, turning pages, page 34, according to the Center for Disease Control, most face face masks do not effectively filter small particles from the air and do not prevent leakage around the edge of the mask when the user inhales. Face masks are intended to be for people who... Now listen here, folks. This is an audiobook, and I just said the word leakage, so I give myself a mega point for even staying that composed, okay? So face masks are intended to be for people who currently have COVID-19 and can help to prevent others from catching the virus. However, they do not prevent people from getting the virus. While I do recommend caution when interacting with others, the level and irrationality of the precautions being taken is resulting in more fear than prevention. As an example of the precautions I recommend, if you know somebody who has the coronavirus, don't make out with them. The common flu killed 80,000 people from 2017 to 2018. Yet I don't see people wearing all this equipment during flu season. When you take a look at the data and examine who is actually at risk for the coronavirus, you see a very clear picture. The coronavirus is most dangerous for people who are 65 and older or who have pre-existing conditions. According to the Center for Disease Control, older adults and people of any age who have serious underlying medical conditions might be at a higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19, the coronavirus. They go on to list several high-risk identifiers along with a list of the underlying conditions that could put people at a higher risk. Here is the actual list that is found on the Center for Disease Control's website. Based on what we know now, those at high risk for severe illness from the COVID-19 virus are, get yourself psychologically ready, people age 65 years and older, people who live in a nursing home or long-term care facility, people of all ages with underlying medical conditions, particularly if not well controlled, including people with chronic lung disease or moderate to severe asthma, people who have serious heart conditions, people who are immunocompromised. It's just an easy word to say. Let's all say it together. People who are immunocompromised. Many conditions can cause a person to become immunocompromised, including cancer treatment, smoking, bone marrow or organ transplantation, immune deficiencies, poorly controlled HIV or AIDS, and prolonged use of corticosteroids and other immune-weakening medications. People with severe obesity, body mass index, BMI of 40 or higher. People with diabetes, people with chronic kidney disease. And I continue reading on page 36. People who are undergoing dialysis, people with liver disease. If you are an individual that fits into one of those descriptions above, then you should absolutely take precautions to ensure that you do not get the coronavirus. When you look at Italy's numbers and the statistics of those who died from the virus, you get a very clear picture of who is at risk. According to Bloomberg, 99.2% of the people that died in Italy from the coronavirus were older and had other illnesses. I repeat, according to Bloomberg, 99.2% of the people that died in Italy from the coronavirus were older and had other illnesses. In fact, the average age of those who died was 79. All of the people who died under the age of 40 had serious medical conditions. Thus, the probability of somebody under the age of 65 with normal health being at risk of dying from the coronavirus is very, very low. When you look at the statistics in the United States, it tells the same story. When you take an in-depth look at the first 100 people who have died from the coronavirus in the U.S., from the coronavirus, you see examples like, and this was reported by CNN, folks. This was reported by CNN, the first 100 people who have died. I look into their lives, you find the following. A 90-year-old resident of Sacramento County who had underlying health conditions and who was in an assisted living facility. A 69-year-old man from Bergen County who had a history of diabetes, hypertension, atrial fibrillation, gastrointestinal bleeding, glory, and emphysema. A 79-year-old woman suffering from heart failure and lung disease before contracting the virus. As of the day I am writing this, according to worldometer.com, these are the statistics for death from coronavirus. If you're ages 0 to 9, no fatalities. 10 to 19, 0.2% of the fatalities. 20 to 29.2%, 30 to 39.2%, 40 to 49.4%, 50 to 59, 1.3%, 60 to 69 years old, 3.6%. 70 to 79 years old, 8%. And 80 years old plus, 14.8%. The graph clearly shows that your percentage chance of dying if you are 60 and above is significantly larger than if you are younger than 60. I wonder if the same thing holds true for the common flu. Think about that. If you are a parent of a younger child who is 9 years old and younger, and you take a look at this data, then you should have great confidence to know that the likelihood that your child will die from the coronavirus is next to none. None. From the original word meaning zero, nil, zilch, nothing, folks. Again, think about that for a second. You should have great confidence to know that the likelihood that your child will die from the coronavirus is next to none. Not next to an actual nun, like a Catholic nun. No, we're talking about none, zero. Yet even with this data, people are afraid to even look at each other. Are you looking at me now while listening to this audiobook? Pre-existing conditions, folks. We have the charts here for you in the printed version of the book. You can see all these things, okay? Or you can get the other facts at thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. That's thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. If you have any of these conditions, then you have a much higher chance of dying than those that don't. Is the coronavirus actually killing kids? There's a lot of fear concerning the safety and health of children, and the media feeds off this fear. As an example, CNN posted an article with the headline, 12-year-old girl with coronavirus is on a ventilator and fighting for her life. Now, if you just looked at the headline, then you would assume that children are incredibly susceptible to the virus. This misleading headline would absolutely convince you that, yes, we should shut down the entire economy and save the kids. But we wouldn't have any jobs to feed the kids. But if you actually take the time to read the article, you will see that the article talks about how this girl first contracted pneumonia, then got the coronavirus. Additionally, it goes on to say, out of 731 confirmed and 1,412 suspected cases of COVID-19 in children in China, one child, a 14-year-old boy, died. If you take the time to watch the video, you will see that it clearly communicates that children do not need to worry about this virus. And you don't need to worry about your children getting the virus or dying from the virus. Amongst all of the fear-inciting, speculated, and proven misconstrued facts and overblown headlines, there is one that sticks out the most to me. In China, only 0.2% of the total deaths from the coronavirus were children. Experts agree a low number of kids with the coronavirus are actually dying in comparison to the seasonal flu, although numbers vary strain by strain, year by year. Again, in 2017-2018, 180,000 people died from the common flu, and 180 children died from the common flu, and you can see these stats that were shared by CNN. 144 pediatric deaths were reported to the Center for Disease Control from the flu vulnerability this season of 2019-2020. Maybe we should go ahead and shut down life and our economy 10 months out of the 12 months each year during the year to avoid allowing our children to potentially get the flu or anything bad that may happen to them ever. Ever. Ponder that for a second. Anyone who's a parent would probably say that they wish they could shield their children from the bad. Yet most of us don't avoid taking them to school, to soccer, to dance, to football, to vacation, to cheerleading, or anything fun because it requires driving in a car. If we are following the same logic that incited the coronavirus panic, we must never go anywhere or do anything ever again that could possibly put you at risk. But the fact is, we don't do that, folks. We never have, and we never will back down from life just because of a little risk. We're Americans. There is the legitimate precaution, though, with children and the coronavirus. Our little loved ones could, and I repeat, could pass the virus on to someone who is at a higher risk level, such as an elderly person or anyone with a compromised immune system, according to Dr. Fauci. If a young individual, a child, gets infected, they may do perfectly well from a physical standpoint, he said, but they may bring it home to a person who is susceptible. Here's the thing, though, guys. Don't we all do that anyway? I mean, I know for my family, I don't purposely bring them out to cough on the elderly or those that have compromised immune systems, whether they have the flu or another seasonal virus, or even the common cold. I don't bring sick kids around elderly people. I have 5 kids, and one thing I've learned is that they are resilient. They may be carrying around the common flu or the common cold 70% of the year. Who knows? But that shouldn't stop them from doing activities and enjoying life just because they are little carriers. Instead, I teach them to wash their hands and not to cough on people. Weird. Are the deaths being reported accurate? Even though the facts and the reports hidden under the alarming headlines are continuing to make COVID-19 seem less and less serious and deadly, the country is still shut down, and the fear of the general public is off the charts. When you see another report of a coronavirus death in the news, there are some things you need to know. Next time you see another report of the coronavirus deaths and a coronavirus death, there are some things you need to know and to consider. Even when a patient has other health concerns and complications, many healthcare workers are reporting the cause of death as COVID-19. What? When you see the reports of the death in the news, the reporters aren't stating that the actual cause of death may in fact have been a heart problem or a kidney issue. Even if COVID-19 isn't confirmed but is likely, healthcare workers are encouraged to list it as the cause of death on the certificate, on the death certificate. Here's what some leaders and experts are saying about the coronavirus death reports. The Center for Disease Control's guidance on how to fill out death certificates is, in cases where a definite diagnosis of COVID-19 cannot be made, but that it is suspected or likely, the circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. What? In these instances, certifiers should use their best clinical judgment in determining if a COVID-19 infection was likely. However, please note that testing for COVID-19 should be conducted whenever possible. Minnesota Senator Scott Jensen. Again, Minnesota Senator Dr. Scott Jensen responded to the Center for Disease Control's guidance by saying, and I'm quoting, "In short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the Center for Disease Control's manual on how to complete death certificates. In that manual, it talks of precision and specificity. And that is what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has an impact on estate planning. It has an impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue because we're going to undermine the trust of the public. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that are not necessarily motivated based on fact and science, the public's trust in politicians is already wearing thin. Anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward. Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to your hospital, you will get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, then you will be paid $39,000, 3 times as much. And Dr. Deborah Birx said during a press conference on page 43 of the book that you can purchase and hold in your hand of the press conference, she says, there are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, let's say a heart disease or kidney problem, some countries are recording that this is a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it and mark it as COVID-19 infection. The intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that. In short, even the reported deaths related to the coronavirus are questionable. We need to continue to look deeper than the headlines and realize that there are some hidden agendas behind the deaths being reported. So who is at risk of dying from the coronavirus? Short answer is people who are 65 years and older who have pre-existing conditions. If you fall into these categories, then take extra precautions. If you do not, then you can set aside any fear you are experiencing and understand that you are much more likely to die from heart disease than coronavirus. Be smart. Don't go visit your grandparents during this time. But also don't give into the media's ploy to get you to click on their articles and to be overcome by fear. We can get past this as a country, but we need to first start with the facts and realize that the overwhelming majority of people are not at risk of dying from the coronavirus. We cannot shut down our country due to people who might get the virus. If it were possible to keep our entire society safe at all times, I assure you, most people would all be doing that for themselves and their children. But that's not possible. We cannot shield our society, including our children, from any risk whatsoever. This type of fear-based logic restricts our children from socializing, living life, learning additional physical or mental skill sets, and so many other emotional, intellectual, and physical benefits that daily social interaction provides. When you keep the world isolated, bad things happen. A pandemic occurs when the mainstream media is telling you that a panic is upon us, coming for our families. This creates soul-sucking fear if you do not know the facts. I'm here to teach you the facts so you can protect your family and your children from this irrational, anti-logic-based fear created by our trusty government and media outlets probably controlled by the government. Yes, we need a cure for the coronavirus, but we already have a cure for the hysterical fear that's running rampant. Facts, logic, knowledge. Know the facts and let go of the fear. We cannot sustainably live in solitary confinement.
God only knows you try to fight it. It's just a wolf who's always lying. Don't believe the lie.
Chapter 4. Is this pandemic truly unprecedented? Each and every year, Americans face health threats such as colds, heart disease, cancer, the newest strain of influenza, and various other conditions or factors that could potentially be fatal. In fact, as stated earlier, the common flu killed 80,000 people in 2017 and 2018 alone. Although 219 people die per day from the common flu, the media doesn't report on each and every case and death as though it was breaking news. However, with the coronavirus, the media feels the need to update you with this breaking news after each and every death. And because you are stuck at home, quarantined indefinitely, many people feel the need to share these headlines and breaking news updates. And the doom loop cycle of the media writing alarming headlines that are then shared by social media users continues, with seemingly no end in sight. People fail to understand or are having a hard time admitting that this isn't the first pandemic the world has experienced. Everyone chooses to believe that this is the worst disease to have ever hit the planet. But the sad truth is that this is blatantly untrue. In fact, let's take a quick look at some of the biggest health scares in the human population in the last millennium that nobody seems to want to talk about. Also, let's take one step further and look into the common daily causes of fatalities that are just as dangerous as the pandemic. The 1918 Spanish flu. The 1918 influenza pandemic, also known as the Spanish flu, was credited as being the most severe pandemic in recent history before the coronavirus pandemic scare. In the span of 1 year, this particular strain of the influenza managed to kill 50 million people globally, with 650,000 deaths in the United States alone. Focusing on the U.S. numbers alone, that puts the total fatality rate at 1,781 deaths per day. At the time of writing this, the coronavirus is predicted to kill 60,415 Americans. 60,415 is a large number, but the number is less than the number of people who died from the flu in 2017-2018. Following the same model that states that the COVID-19 could possibly claim the lives of 100,000 Americans, that puts the daily average of death at 274 people per day. This is not an optimistic number by any means. However, it's hard to say that this is the most aggressive pandemic ever when another virus historically outshines it. H1N1, the swine flu. Do you even remember the swine flu? I bet you'll never forget it after you ponder the thought of the screaming pig. This is what a pig sounds like, folks. Do you even remember the swine flu? The H1N1 strand of influenza was the next big thing in the world of pandemics. It actually originated in the United States and spread to the rest of the world. It came onto the scene between 2009 and 2010 and did a fine job terrifying parents, teachers, and anyone in the at-risk population. Fun fact, the H1N1 influenza strain is actually a distant relative of the original Spanish flu. Who knew? Did you know that? Well, sadly, nobody knew that because the facts were not made regularly available in the news reports. From April 2009 to April 2010, the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, estimated there were 60 million, that's 60.8 million cases of the swine flu. 274,304 hospitalizations and 12,469 deaths in the United States alone. On average, that means that 34.2 people died per day of the swine flu during this period. I remember friends and family members taking this very seriously, and it was a constant topic of conversation. But we never shut the country down because of it. The vast majority of those who got this new flu recovered and built up the necessary immunities to avoid it should it ever return. However, what's both funny and kind of shocking, though, is that if you ask a certain percentage of people who lived through the swine flu about their experience, more often than not, they will have no idea what you're talking about. A pandemic has almost been completely forgotten. The West African Ebola outbreak. Towards the beginning of 2014, the world started getting its first glimpses of the next flavor of pandemic, the West African Ebola outbreak. On March 23, 2014, the World Health Organization, known as the WHO, began reporting cases of the Ebola virus disease, or EVD, in the rural regions of southeastern Guinea. This officially marked the beginning of the West Africa Ebola epidemic. It was, in fact, the largest Ebola outbreak in history. However, it was the first time that many Americans were even hearing the word Ebola. Media buzz began spreading fear as more and more stories regarding the virus started to surface. I remember there being a scandal at the Tulsa International Airport where unreliable sources claimed that a flight had been quarantined due to some passengers on the flight testing positive for the Ebola virus. People were terrified of their insides becoming liquefied, but at the end of the day, only a whopping 11 people were treated in the United States during the 2-year run of this virus. The common flu. Oh yes, we cannot forget the common flu. Everyone in the entire world seems to be focusing on the projected death toll of COVID-19, but few are aware of the death toll that was the result of the common flu just 1 year prior. The common influenza strain managed to kill an estimated 80,000 Americans from 2017 to 2018. That's 219 Americans per day. Of the 80,000 lives that were lost due to this disease, 180 of those deaths were children. An additional 959,000 people were hospitalized on top of the death count. But do you know what the most alarming thing about this is? America didn't freak out. At no point did anyone suggest closing businesses or implementing social distancing. With a death count so extremely high, how do Americans not know the depth of lives being lost during this time? Why was nobody freaking out? Additional morbid facts that are also horrible but never focused on. In 2018, 250,000 patients died due to accidents in a hospital. That's right, my bad, managed to claim 250,000 lives, and yet nobody banned doctors or hospital visits. Folks, an incredible 684 people die per day, every day, from hospital mistakes. And yet, most people aren't overwhelmed by fear every time they go to the hospital. However, I am freaked out every time I go to the hospital. In that very same year, deaths as the result of traffic accidents exceeded 40,000 people. But people still get in their cars every day. In fact, over 4.7 million cars, aka death machines, were purchased that very year. Crazy, right? Heart disease claims an average of 647,000 American lives each and every year. That comes out to 1,772 deaths per day. So why aren't you filled with fear over your pending death, soon to be caused by heart disease, every time that you go out to eat? The sad truth is that we are currently living in a digital dystopia where people simply cannot seem to put their smartphones down. Remember, the average American spends over 11 hours per day consuming media in front of a screen of some kind each and every day. Think about it. Push notifications interrupt us over 80 times in a given day as well. So it is safe to say that the modern human being is extremely well connected to the world around them. However, this level of connection is also directly impacting our current situation. We're living in the era of misleading headlines and published articles that are not fact-checked and are filled with clickbait. You know those headlines that you want to click on news stations and on social media posts? News stations keep a constant stream of bad news pumping through every possible form of communication, and our addiction to these little screens keeps us misinformed. The reason why the world didn't shut down during the Spanish flu was due to the fact that nobody could get information instantly. The reason so many have forgotten about the swine flu is because social media wasn't quite yet explosive. And the reason nobody cares that the common flu has such a high death count is frankly because it's old news as far as diseases go. It's not sexy anymore. It just isn't sexy. It's not new. It's not exciting. The coronavirus has such little proof behind it, which makes it easy for media outlets to capitalize on it. The reach of social media and devices allows this fear to spread and further affect our way of life. So reading through all that, you're probably thinking, well, that's a lot of not so much fun facts. But the point here is that throughout history, Americans have fought through adversity, trials, and tribulations. We have experienced much worse throughout our history. Listing out other ways that people have died in recent history is not meant to instill more fear. In fact, quite the opposite. It's meant to show you that the mass hysteria over the coronavirus causing citywide shutdowns is a media-fueled overreaction and a social media-fueled overreaction. Yes, it is serious, but are the measures being taken hurting more than helping?
One more day is never enough.
Chapter 5, A Reason for Hope.
We'll meet again when it's time. You see you again, goodbye.
On April 8th, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington, which had previously projected more than 90,000 American deaths from the COVID-19, has now lowered its estimate on Wednesday to 60,415 deaths in the period until August 4th, which means that the coronavirus is now less dangerous than the common flu, which killed 80,000 people in 2017 and 2018. Thus, quarantining our country and shuttering our businesses to hide from the virus makes about as much sense as recommending euthanizing a person because they have a cancerous growth on their pinky finger.
Bob?
Dr. Jones?
I hate to tell you this, but it looks as though you have a cancerous growth on your pinky finger.
No.
We're going to have to put you down.
What?
Bob, if you'll just put on this gown and sign this form, I'll go get the nail gun.
Do you think it'll stop the spread of the cancerous growth?
Oh, yeah. Death is always going to kill a cancerous growth.
What's the copay? Nonetheless, until there is a cure, it's possible that every time there is another outbreak, social distancing measures might be put in place again. So when will there be a cure? Well, on April 2nd, 2020, America got some great news from Dr. Stephen Smith, who went on Laura Ingram's show. He talked about the powers of this drug, hydroxychloroquine, and said, I think this is the beginning of the end of the pandemic. Can an actual cure exist? Well, a credible source is actually testing and providing facts about the cure. This is great news. But before we get into that, let's find out who exactly Dr. Stephen Smith is. Let's make sure he actually knows a thing or two about pharmaceuticals, diseases, and a possible cure. Who is Dr. Smith? Well, Dr. Smith is an infectious disease expert who is the founder of the Smith Center for Infectious Disease and Urban Health, which is located in New Jersey. He went to both Duke University and Yale, and he started the Smith Center as a nonprofit in order to address the different types of infectious disease found in the inner city, and originally had a focus on HIV cases. To clarify, this guy has the educational background from two of the most credible universities, as well as the boots-on-the-ground, real-world experience to study infectious disease. Additionally, Dr. Smith is a patent holder of two different patents. One of the patents he holds is a conditionally controlled, attenuated HIV vaccine, which slows the rate of the HIV virus and weakens the effects. As a tribute to Dr. Smith, I just want to practice the word attenuated with you right now. I have never said this word before, and I probably will never say this word again. So the word attenuated actually means having been reduced in force, effect, or value. So say it with me now. Attenuated.
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 Really feel it. Attenuated.
Attenuated.
Let's try using it in a sentence, okay? Let's try to use the word attenuated in a sentence.
I do solemnly swear I want to attenuate with you right now.
And we're moving on. Those are just a few of his accolades and accomplishments. The list goes on, but the point is that Dr. Smith is legit. He knows what he's talking about. Now, that we all understand that Dr. Smith is, in fact, a very intelligent human, we should rejoice about his findings of the treatment for the coronavirus with the drug hydroxychloroquine. He told Laura that out of all of the patients that had COVID-19, none of them that were on hydroxychloroquine had to be intubated. This means you need to have a ventilator due to failure of your respiratory system. This is big. That means that the fight for ventilators might be over. If we focused on treating, testing, and scaling the hydroxychloroquine plan, not only could patients get better faster, but doctors could also treat them faster than ever and not worry about their limited supply of ventilators. Even Dr. Oz piped in and said that he tested Dr. Smith's discoveries with 62 randomized patients who tested positive for COVID-19. The improvements in pneumonia alone were substantial. Without hydroxychloroquine, there was only a 54.8% improvement in pneumonia. When using the drug, Dr. Oz reports an 80.6% improvement in only 5 days of using hydroxychloroquine. The results speak for themselves. So you might be wondering, what is the deal? We have a cure or something closer to a cure, so why are we still in isolation? If you are just an average American with 5 kids like myself, you probably haven't attempted to get a drug FDA approved too many times in your lifetime.
Well, there was this one time in high school, a guy named Oswald and I, we would hole up in his mom's basement for hours trying to make our own drugs.
That's not what we're talking about. Unless, of course, you have, in which case you already know the facts here, folks. Most people don't make their own FDA drugs. But it's important to know and understand the drug approval process. According to the Federal Drug Administration, there is a 2-tiered system of approving new drugs to the marketplace. There's the standard review, and then there is the priority review. The standard review is for the drugs offering only minor improvements over other therapies. The priority review, which would be something a little bit closer to what our friend Dr. Smith here is concerned with. The priority review, the best case scenario, is typically completed in 6 months. However, here's the thing, folks. We need the cure now, not in 6 months. There is a fast-track option, though. According to the FDA, when the urgency is there, the fast-track program can get a drug approved within 60 days. This is great news for anyone thinking that the lack of a cure will keep us all living in fear and quarantine for 6 months or a year. And since hydroxychloroquine sulfate is actually already an FDA-approved prescription for existing treatment options and therapy for other diseases, it should be approved without a hitch. This is phenomenal news that needs to be shared with the world so that everyone can not only know about it, but maybe we can stop living in so much fear. Fear is the real killer in this pandemic, and the more and more information that we can get out to calm and dispel the fear, the faster we can get our country back to normal and start working again. The sooner we get our businesses open, the sooner we make America work again. And the sooner we get our economy back up and running, the sooner we can all calm down. It's time now to begin taking strides towards making our economy better now. Chapter 6. The winners and losers of the shutdown. Winning and losing is an interesting concept. Why do we have to speak in such black and white terms? Is there enough room in a conversation regarding winning and losing to simply be content to play the game? Why is this concept of winning and losing so closely tied to our view of how the world works? When a company makes more money, are they winning? When a company is forced out of business by another company, are they losing? Did they deserve to lose? Did they play the game incorrectly? Did they misunderstand the rules of the game, or were they simply bad at it? Why are we tying the making of money to winning? These questions fascinate me because I find money vastly misunderstood in the current day and time in which we live. And I want to take a look at what I will consider to be winners and losers as it relates to companies making more or less money during the coronavirus economic shutdown. And while I do not want to inflame a political conversation, I think there's an underlying winner and loser that is going unnoticed in this conversation that will ultimately cause a significantly higher level of pain than the coronavirus and the temporary economic shutdown. Before I look at some companies that will make a significant amount of money during the economic shutdown or highlight some companies that will lose greatly, I think it's valuable to take a second and define what money is. I find it truly rare that somebody actually understands what money is and what it represents. In Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged, a character by the name of Francisco de Anconia put forth a monologue that, in my opinion, is a clear and defensible position on the purpose, value, and definition of money. Francisco finds himself essentially taking up the defense of money, denying that money in and of itself is the root of all evil. Francisco asks an interesting question. Have you ever asked, what is the root of money? Francisco continues. Money is a tool of exchange which can't exist unless there are goods produced and men able to produce them. Money is the material shape of the principle that men who wish to deal with one another must deal by trade and give value for value. Money is not the tool of the moochers who claim your product by tears or the looters who take it from you by force. Money is made possible only by the men who produce. Is this what you consider evil? Is it not the moochers or the looters who give value to money? Those pieces of paper are a token of honor, your claim upon the energy of the men who produce. Your wallet is your statement of hope that somewhere in the world around you there are men who will not default on that moral principle which is the root of money. Is that what you consider evil? Now, his speech is quite long, and I encourage you to read it in its entirety. But now you will know where I'm coming from when I distinguish which companies are winners and losers amidst the coronavirus pandemic. As we look at the company's efforts to navigate this changing economic conditions presented to us by our government's actions and public opinion, you will see that there are companies that will be big winners and companies that will be big losers. Some that sell more stuff and some that will sell less stuff as a result of their reaction to the coronavirus shutdown. The media and a seemingly unending stream of government officials are issuing order after order for people to shelter in place, stay at home, and not go outside. This forces people to consume products and services that can be delivered to their home, resulting in an increase in sales for companies that use a delivery service or the internet to fulfill orders. According to Quantum Metric, a data analysis firm that analyzed the traffic of 5.5 billion visitors to online and mobile retail websites from January 1 through the end of February, online sales have shot through the roof. Quantum Metric looked at data acquired from last year and this year and saw a massive jump in sales from people buying products and services from brick-and-mortar companies. Specifically, Quantum Metric saw a jump of 52% in online sales when compared to the same time frame a year ago. Another interesting statistic is the total number of shoppers also increased by 8.8% since this coronavirus craziness began. This is in reference to one of the hardest numbers to move in the world of e-commerce, which is the conversion rate. The conversion rate is the number of people that have to visit your website in order to make one sale. So, for instance, if you took 100 people visiting a website that sold shoes to sell one pair of shoes, then your conversion rate would be 1%. 100 visitors to your website, one sale. That means your conversion rate is 1%. The great thing about knowing this number is that if you want to sell 10 pairs of shoes, then you simply have to send 10 times the amount of traffic to your website. And according to your conversion rate, you will have a high statistical probability of selling 10 pairs of shoes. Now, companies were not doing anything significantly different to their websites this year compared to last year that we could attribute this increase in sales to, which indicates that an outside force, such as the fear of venturing outside of the home, is having an almost 9% increase in the number of people buying online. Now, if there was a single company that was literally made for a coronavirus economy, it is Amazon. They invest heavily in supply chain logistics, and they place a high value on their customer experience, which drives them to innovate their systems and to deliver products to your door as fast as possible. And in many places, delivery can now happen the same day a purchase is made. When I was growing up, if you wanted to buy a computer, you would have to physically go to a computer store to look at all the new technology. You'd have to go and look at the massive speakers and the TVs at Circuit City, or drool over the shiny computer cases with the cool LED lights at Comp USA, or Best Buy, or you would have to trust your gut and the salesman to know which brand and product to purchase. But there has been a shift in the personality of the modern consumer, away from risk and towards convenience. The modern consumer does not want to risk buying something and have that item turn out to be something less than the best or less than expected. A contributing factor to the rise of Amazon's success has been the video distribution platforms like YouTube. When a person wants a new pair of headphones, they used to have to go to a store and make a decision on which pair to purchase based upon the packaging and the recommendation of the sales representative that is following them around the store. Now you can watch an unboxing video of a person on YouTube and listen to a person review 15 different brands and types of headphones, subject the products to hilarious stress tests, and ultimately give you their recommendation. You can then click on their affiliate link to the product on Amazon, read the customer reviews and testimonials about the product, and then have the product on your doorstep in less than 12 hours. And as people get more comfortable with buying online, more and more people are going to keep buying online. The coronavirus outbreak has only reinforced consumers' desire to buy stuff online. The pandemic has forced many businesses to shut down their storefronts and to direct their consumers and customers to their website as much as humanly possible. People are scared to go outside as news agencies continue to drown them in worst-case scenario, fear-induced scenarios related to the spread of the coronavirus. So the only way that they can buy products is by using online stores. Amazon owns the e-commerce market. 38.7% of all U.S. e-commerce sales now flows through Amazon, according to eMarketer. Did you know that during February 2020 that people visited Amazon.com over 2 billion times? That's more than 2 times. There are 2,419,200 seconds during the month of February. I did not know that. Which means that if you decide to divide the number of times people visit Amazon.com by the number of seconds during the month of February, and I know you will do this, you will get over 830 visits per second. Amazon knows how to react quickly to market changes. For example, Amazon expanded its fulfillment center staff by hiring 100,000 people and increased their hourly wage across the board by 2% as of March 16th, 2020. Now, while sales are up and traffic is up, visitors are up, the question is, what does this mean for Amazon revenues? Can Amazon convert an increase in demand and sales into an increase in revenue? The market is underestimating the coronavirus's impact on Amazon. Amazon is also suspending or deprioritizing the fulfillment and processing of products that they have deemed to be not necessary. Amazon has temporarily suspended its fulfillment by Amazon shipment program, according to TechCrunch.com. Another area of concern for Amazon is, although necessary items are in more demand, consumer spending as a whole is trending down, according to a survey completed by Moody's Analytics. So even though we are conditioned to use Amazon for everything and they are deemed as an essential business, they too are being impacted. One sector that historically experiences its most growth during down economies is the information technology services sector of the economy. This sector is made up of companies that support the technology needs of businesses, as opposed to companies hiring local staff to complete those support tasks. During a down economy or an economy where businesses tighten their belts, close locations, and lay off staff and reduce expenses, one of the largest areas of expense for a business owner is their payroll. During a down economy, a business owner still needs to keep its technology up and running smoothly, but can no longer afford to pay a staff of 2 or 3 people to keep that technology running. So they begin to reach out to what is called a managed services provider, or MSP. An MSP will take over all of the technology support needs of a business owner and responsibilities of the former staff, but they can complete these duties for about half of the total salary expense of an in-house staff member. A managed service provider or IT company can also complete these tasks at a much faster rate, thus reducing downtime and resolution times for their clients because they typically have more people on staff than the small business owner could afford to employ. A down economy creates more of a push of clients to an IT company as opposed to marketing having to pull them into the sale. Technology Solutions Consulting, Inc., an IT and managed service company started by Josh Feldman and Jerome Garrett, was started during the last recession in 2008 and proceeded to grow rapidly during that down economy and went on to become one of the larger IT companies within its market. Whether it's e-commerce or IT companies, there are some notable winners in this shutdown. So who is losing in this coronavirus economy? Nearly every small business owner and their staff is being hurt by the coronavirus economic shutdown, which has unemployed 22 million Americans as of the time of the writing of this book. Many businesses deemed non-essential have been forced to close their doors due to the coronavirus. This includes retail stores, hair salons, gyms, barbershops, restaurants, bars, movie theaters, and more. While some businesses have attempted to survive by allowing their employees to work from home, it is not working, and it is not sustainable. The level of half-assery going on caused by allowing Americans to work in their distraction-filled homes with little to no accountability is tremendous. Businesses are losing big time. Even businesses that don't have to shut down entirely are affected by lack of revenue, and nearly every American business is reducing hours, laying off employees, and figuring out how to make things work during this 2-month experiment with communism. Employees are actually being paid not to work. Everyone is getting a paycheck from the government, the Paycheck Protection Program, which just ran out of money, and our state and federal governments get to decide which industries are essential and which ones are not. In an effort to be safe and precautious, we have put many more people in danger and have compromised our values as a nation. Our entire economy has been required to shut down. Now, this raises an interesting question. Would you rather have safety or freedom? Again, I ask you, would you rather have safety or freedom? The United States was built on the prioritization of freedom over safety. Of course, we want safety, but not at the expense of a great deal of freedom. As Patrick Henry once said in 1775, "Give me liberty or give me death." With the number of shelter-at-home orders, businesses closing directives, and executive orders from governors, mayors, and city managers telling people where to go when they're allowed to go outside of their homes, I can't help but wonder if the real loser in this economy is our freedoms. And the winner is government and the amount of control that they are now allowed to have over your life and your business. As George Washington once said, government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force. And like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master.
I've been a pilgrim out on the road, one of the million looking for home. I've been a pilgrim, I've been a pilgrim. I've been nomadic, tell you the truth, swimming in static, looking for you. I've been nomadic, no doubt about it. I'ma go where the spirit leads you. Ain't nobody stopping me. I'm on my way, I'm a wanderer. Till I found my place, I'm a wanderer. You set my sail on fire. I'm drifting.
Chapter 7, A Cure Worse Than the Problem.
Hello, and thank you for calling the Bug Boys. Extermination and bug killer and stuff.
Yeah, I have a mouse in my house, and I just wanted to see what you guys would charge to remove the mouse from the house.
Well, now, how big is the mouse?
Well, I haven't actually seen the mouse. I just can, hear the mouse. I can. You just know there's a mouse in the house.
So it's an invisible enemy. I mean, it could
What?
There could be thousands of mouses, or mice, we like to call them in the industry.
Well, I never thought about it that way. How many mice do you think we might have?
All of them. I mean, there could be thousands of them, and they've been known to spread viruses. And,
Oh no!
they could kill people. I
What?
once saw a mouse. It was the size of a woman.
No, you
Small
didn't.
woman,
No,
but
you
it was the size of a woman.
I don't know if that's actually possible.
So you're trying to tell me that you know the size and weight of all women?
Have you thought about that? I mean, have you actually seen a mouse the size of a woman?
Well, I've been looking through this report that I read from a trusted communist source based in China who told me that there was a mouse the size of a woman. And it's a very credible source from China. And
What?
I try to get all my news from China, really, because they have been known to love us so much, and
No,
they've
they
been so
don't.
honest in their business dealings. And
Are you kidding me? The Chinese are constantly lying to us. Why would you possibly trust the Chinese for your recommendations?
well, because I owe them a lot of money.
How do you owe the Chinese a lot of money?
Well, I regrettably began to auto-ship myself Chinese finger locks.
Sure.
And forgot to turn it off, and they just keep shipping the
Right.
finger locks, and they're fun to play, but, I just
Yeah.
I owe them a lot of money.
Okay, well, give me a quote. What's it going to cost, or what do you recommend we should do to remove the mouse from the house?
Sure. Step one, we want to shut it down.
My house?
Potentially your town, for sure your house.
The whole town?
And you want to quarantine yourself
Oh, okay.
and stay in the house. Don't move. Don't go outside. Don't.
For how long?
Step one.
What?
Step two, we wait for weeks up to months
Why?
for the mouse to rear its
I don't get it.
head, and if it doesn't come out, then we wait.
Why?
Listen here. We will do this because this is what the Chinese have told us to do. Submit to their will. I owe these people money. I've got Chinese finger locks everywhere, wall to wall. I owe these people money.
Okay, I get it. But then what do we do?
You continue waiting for an indefinite amount of time as I look for a cure or a potential way to kill all the mice that will ever populate your home again.
Chapter 7, A Cure Worse Than the Problem. Dr. Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, estimated on March 29th that COVID-19 could kill between 100,000 to 200,000 Americans. This would translate to 306 to 611 deaths per million people in the United States. At face value, this estimate would cause some people to worry. Ask any successful business owner how they feel about the economic shutdown and see what they say. Most of them will tell you how ridiculous it is that we cannot be working during this pandemic regardless of the danger. Why do so many successful business owners reject the extreme social distancing measures being implemented? Is it that entrepreneurs value monetary gain over human life? Or does the entrepreneurial perspective allow them to see the true human cost over the long term? Let's start with the question. Why the hell would anyone listen to an entrepreneur instead of a doctor anyways? To dig into this issue, let's look at some stats on entrepreneurship. About 16 million, or 4.9% of the United States, is self-employed. We also know that 96% of businesses fail within 10 years, and that only 30% of businesses have 5 employees or more. Thus, the percentage of the population who has been in business for 10 years or more and who has grown a company to more than 4 employees is 0.06%. In other words, roughly 1 in every 1,700 people in the United States is a successful business owner. Let's compare that to the 1.1 million doctors in the United States, or 0.34% of the population, or roughly 1 in every 300 people in the United States is a doctor. Now, does this mean successful entrepreneurs are smarter than doctors? I'm sure most entrepreneurs would readily admit that their book-smart memorization skills range from only if I must to couldn't memorize it if my life depended on it. The list of accomplished entrepreneurs, from Bill Gates to myself to Walt Disney, who didn't graduate from college, is long and illustrious. And none of us could have made it as doctors due to our inability to sit still, memorize, and focus and follow procedures. One of the original dropouts, when questioned on his inability to memorize, said it best, Henry Ford. If I should really want to answer the foolish question you have just asked, or any of the other questions you have been asking me, let me remind you that I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk, and by pushing the right button, I can summon to my aid men who can answer any question I desire to ask concerning the business to which I am devoting most of my efforts. Now, will you kindly tell me why I should clutter up my mind with general knowledge for the purpose of being able to answer these kinds of questions when I have men around me who can supply any knowledge I require? I'm sure most entrepreneurs would be fully satisfied in conceding the IQ test to the doctors. However, most successful entrepreneurs have simply found a way to pull together readily available ordinary information from multiple sources to achieve extraordinary results. The answer to why this mindset is so rare is likely rooted in conventional education. Conventional education often gives multiple choice tests where one answer is right and 3 are wrong. In business, there is rarely one definitely right answer, but rather multiple options, each having various pros and cons. They teach us in school that there are clearly defined rules. But in business, we rarely find complete clarity in regulations and are often forced to deal with conflicting regulations. In school, they teach us to reach consensus, vanilla decisions that semi-please everyone. However, the market tends to reward bold actions. Most importantly, in school, we are taught to get a job and to seek immediate payment. Yet entrepreneurial success is largely dependent upon thoughtful risk-taking and delayed gratification. Entrepreneurs are not looking for success in the short term. They are looking for long-term success. They're normally playing chess, not checkers. My friends, what this means is that it's not surprising that entrepreneurs would be less swayed from groupthink and would be more likely to offer a dissenting opinion on the COVID-19 lockdown strategy. How does a pragmatic entrepreneur look at the COVID-19 issue? Let's look at how Canada's very successful CPA, Josh Spurl, started advising Canadian entrepreneurs on this issue. First off, he became frustrated when public releases lacked any numerical context. Press conference after press conference simply presented two vague graphs, one with a high apex protruding the dotted line of the hospital capacity and one with a flat apex below the dotted line of the hospital capacity. None of the graphs included the number of cases requiring an ICU bed, the number of ICU beds available, or the number of days of the pandemic. Facing a similar medical challenge in Canada, he began digging for data. Like Henry Ford, he then pulled in ordinary data from other sources. He found historical articles detailing the number of ICU beds in the country, ultimately arriving at the conclusion that there would be approximately 478 deaths per million people in Canada, putting his projection smack dab in the middle of Dr. Fauci's projection of 306 to 611 deaths per million people. Entrepreneurs, when faced with uncertainty, often dig for data. However, entrepreneurs are not satisfied with the just short-term projections. And because entrepreneurs are playing chess, not checkers, they question what happens after the apex. Well, the most comparable economic event happened in the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. Most people are well aware of the economic carnage that occurred, but what about the human cost? I don't mean esoteric feelings. I mean cold, hard data, undeniable data. What was the cost? What was the human cost of the Great Recession? According to Forbes, the United States suffered 4,750 excess suicide deaths after the recession hit in 2008. Although horrific, this number will likely pale in comparison to the deaths we should expect from the COVID-19 economic fallout after the pandemic passes. Surprisingly, suicides are the least of our concern. The New York Post noted that researchers found that the Great Recession was tied to an additional 263,000 cancer deaths in wealthy Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD countries, such as the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. The OECD has just over 1.3 billion people, which means that the rate of additional cancer deaths attributable to the Great Recession can be pegged at 202 deaths per million. Why does this occur? After a significant economic contraction, budgetary cuts will be made, as shown by the multiple country study with varying healthcare systems. There will be less dollars for both private and public healthcare systems. Still, 202 deaths per million are less than the COVID-19 deaths predicted by Dr. Fauci. If only I was not burdened by the forward-looking entrepreneur mindset, I would be able to stop there, but I can't. However, I have to dig deeper. Cancer normally causes 1,831 deaths per million in the United States, which means an additional 202 deaths per million is an increase of 11% in the cancer death rate. It is illogical to estimate that only cancer treatment will suffer with budgetary healthcare constraints. We should consider the following list of top ailments in its entirety. Heart disease, 1,978 deaths per million. Respiratory disease, 489 deaths per million. Stroke, 447 deaths per million. Encouragement. Alzheimer's, 371 deaths per million. Motivational. Diabetes, 255 deaths per million. Wow, this is encouraging. Influenza, 170 deaths per million. You're an encourager. Kidney disease, 154 deaths per million. I think I might go kill myself. Total, including cancer, 5,695 deaths per million. Let's talk more about death, please. We should realistically expect that reduced healthcare funds will likely increase all of the major issues by 11%. In other words, a significant economic contraction similar to the Great Recession is likely to increase deaths by 626 per million, or a total of 204,827 people in the United States. Think about that, folks. This is above the upper end projections of COVID-19 in the United States. The further we get into this lockdown, the more likely a depression-type economic scenario exists. Many feel that the economic contraction due to the COVID-19 shutdown will exceed the effects of the Great Recession and may rival the Great Depression of the 1930s. My friends, the likelihood of the economic shutdown resulting in more than 204,000 deaths becomes more probable each day the shutdown continues. Doctors are on the front lines of this battle. I get it. However, just like any war, the generals need to make the call with a 30,000-foot view. Imagine a battlefield where the frontline soldiers peer off into the distance to see a formidable opponent. Meeting them head-on will certainly result in casualties. Understandably, the infantry on the front lines will want to take the long way around the forest and flank the enemy from the rear. However, the generals must have the resolve to see the minefield around the forest and order the troops to march forward and face the battle head-on. This is what has to happen in this coronavirus war. War's messy, but the simple truth is the shutdown will kill more people than COVID-19. The shutdown will kill more people than COVID-19. The shutdown will kill more people than COVID-19. Think about that. Chapter 8. When it became unethical to go to work. It's easy to read a book and shrug off the contents of it as an excuse to not actually take action. So I wanted to provide you with some actual stories from actual business owners on how the economic shutdown has affected them in their own words. Let's start with Aaron Antis, the director of marketing for ShawHomes.com, Oklahoma's largest home builder. He writes, "We have been in business for 35 years and have experienced record sales in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. Sales have been on the incline for the last 4 years as the economy under Trump has been booming. The problem is that the amount of money required to keep a business this size going is substantial. However, when government interference closes our entire nation and will not allow ready, willing, and able buyers to even leave their homes, how can our business even have a chance? There are many buyers who we have been speaking with who have decided to stay home even though they need to move. How can someone come visit our homes when the news is threatening that our leaders in government are going to ticket and potentially jail our potential clients for leaving their homes to visit us? While we are at a financial standstill due to a national shutdown, the interest clock doesn't stop ticking. Let's take a minute to look at the financial responsibilities that we have committed to, that we are not being given the freedom to pursue in a free market. One model home has a monthly cost of $2,500 to $3,000 per month. Multiply that times 22 model homes, and you get $60,500 of cost per month to operate empty model homes. Now, each of these 550 plus lots costs $200 to $300 per month in interest. That totals $137,500 in interest on lots that we can't sell without customers coming in to look at them. With 192 homes under contract and under construction for buyers waiting for us to build their dream home, we have opened up construction loans in good faith to build homes built to order for people who aren't allowed to work right now. With many of our buyers missing their paychecks and potentially missing payments on their bills, this could lead to lower credit scores and defaults on credit to be able to close on the homes we are building for them. For every customer that defaults during a build, that creates another home that stays on the back of Shaw Homes to finance until it is sold. Each of those homes that defaults costs us $2,000 to $3,000 per month. And if just half of the 192 homes under construction were to default, that would add another $240,000 of debt for our company to carry monthly. Meanwhile, the fear that has been propagated by our media and government employees is the real pandemic. All of our employees are terrified to leave their homes. We have employees in their mid-30s with young children that are scared to come to work because they fear for their children's lives. Even though statistically children are largely unaffected by the virus, we are allowing the government to force people to stay home. I ask that our leaders in government get a clue and reopen America immediately. Quit crushing our nation's jobs. Quit crushing our nation's employers. And quit crushing the producers out there with overarching policies that are putting unfair burdens on businesses by forcing Americans to stay home in an unprecedented lockdown of the nation known for and founded based upon freedom and our First Amendment rights to peaceably assemble. Terry Wren from America's Best Photography, based in Fort Worth, writes, "They say that all things happen for a reason. I'm not sure the reason for COVID-19 or for closing the entire United States of America during the virus. But I do know this. I am praying every day that my business will be able to recover when we do open back up for business. At the time of me writing this, we have 31 days to go before we even know if we can get back to work or if there will be another extension of shelter in place. I am the owner of America's Best Event Photography based in Fort Worth, Texas. We are the largest youth sports photography company in the area. And we service leagues in North Texas and Waco and all around Texas. We have been in business for over 27 years doing youth sports and preschool photography. Our business is seasonal, and we make the majority of our operating income during 8 weeks in the spring and 8 weeks in the fall. At the beginning of the year, we signed up so much new business, mainly baseball accounts, that I knew we were going to have our most profitable and best baseball season ever. Then, 2 weeks before our opening day, disaster struck. I've been hearing something about a virus. I was paying attention, but not really much because I thought we have had viruses before and we get over them. Fast forward 2 weeks from that thought, and I went from making a steady income to making zero money. I went from having 10 full-time employees that made my business run to having to lay every one of them off on a Sunday night. I remember making that dreaded phone call to each of them, and it felt like a knife being slashed through my heart. Never in all of my years of being a small business owner had I ever had to lay off a full-time employee. As days turned into weeks, I came to the realization that having any baseball season was probably slim to none. Now, here is where it gets really bad. We work double shifts in the spring and fall seasons, and we make our income for the entire year in those months. And I knew that if I didn't have a spring season, that I would not be able to bring back any of my employees in the summer. In the past, every August, I would say to my bookkeeper, I cannot believe I was able to keep everything going the entire summer. And at the exact time the bank account was running on empty, it was time for football season to start, and we were back up and running. I'm a believer, and I know God will take care of me. I have a roof over my head and food on my table. But I know that I had 10 employees that I've always taken responsibility for, some of whom live paycheck to paycheck, and I don't know where their next meal is going to come from or how they're going to pay their bills. As for me, I stay prayerful that this will end soon and everything will go back to normal and that somehow I'll be able to pay the bills. I do know one thing. I will never take for granted the simple things in life, and I will never complain about having to go to work again. Gabe Salinas, his company is called Window Ninjas, writes, Window Ninjas is a window and pressure cleaning company that operates in 4 states and 11 locations. We are a force in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee, and have been growing since our inception in December of 2017. We have faced time off due to hurricanes hitting our corporate office in Wilmington, North Carolina on multiple occasions. Our Nashville office has been affected by tornadoes, and all of our locations suffered through the ice and snowstorm that kept us locked in for weeks during the winter of 2018. We have continued to grow and take these setbacks in stride and keep moving forward. In fact, we were up at least 25% in some markets and as much as 750% in other locations this year, all while never looking for help or a hand or any interference from the government or by our local elected officials, something we are quite proud of. Since the start of the coronavirus crisis in January of 2020, our world has been turned upside down. Our company's employees are fearful and a completely different mindset that we never imagined that they would have. We do weekly group interviews for potential employees and have a hiring process that allows the best of the best to be able to work with Window Ninjas. We are constantly looking to hire excellent employees, which is a big part of why we are growing in a manner that is unprecedented for a company so young. Our customers are generally retired or middle to upper income class or people who are considered wealthy. They are the type of people that see the value in maintenance and upkeep and desire to have services provided on their time. Since the COVID-19 issue, we have had extensive conversations with them, and they are more concerned about being safe than wanting our services to be completed. On the other hand, our employees aged from 21 to 30 are more worried about not being around anyone, not interacting with anyone, and sheltering on the couch. They are spewing false data and clearly do not comprehend the factual information provided by the Center for Disease Control's website. Employees that were once great are now lackluster and ordinary. Two things that we steer clear of as a company. We are driven to be exceptional. The effect of COVID-19 has had on our business is troubling, to say the least. We are extremely concerned and had to reduce staff and cut hours because of the fear that is fed to us daily from the news media and government officials. Their acknowledged mistakes and disinformation that they have fed to the American people have made things very difficult for us. We are taking things day by day, making adjustments constantly, and following the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, recommendations on how to keep our employees safe and our customers safe. We want our employees to go back to work full time. We really want their old attitude and old outlook back. We also don't want to spend all of our savings on a hope and a prayer that the federal government may or may not give us a reimbursement for paying our employees to do nothing. Jamie Fagel from Jameson Fine Cabinetry writes, after 35 years in the cabinet industry and 2 recessions, the first being in 1992 in Canada, which led me to the United States, and the second recession being in 2007 and 2008 in the U.S., I started my own cabinet company. How hard could it be, right? Family-owned and operated, a business with a little money. But I didn't have to travel anymore, and I could finally be at home with my family. The business was started in the front of our house. Then we expanded and moved to the basement of my son's house. We all continued to work endless hours and did anything and everything to keep things moving and customers happy. We expanded again into our current place, and this time we have a showroom and a shop. We look like a real company. Everything was lining up, and 3 years of grinding it out was finally getting us somewhere. Then the virus hit. We are now in survival mode, wondering what to do. How long can we survive this? If we do not have the same revenue coming in, what customers will we lose now and in the future? Do I still try to sell retail, which only made up 40% of my business, or how do I get new builders? I have so many questions that even with 35 years in the building and cabinet industry, I didn't have an answer for any of them. It's been approximately 2 weeks since the virus became a physical obstacle now in our way. Like any entrepreneur, we have a problem. We look at how to get around it, under it, over it, through it. We need to keep moving. Our retail business is now at 0 revenue. We still have a few projects that we're trying to finish up, but we run into more obstacles because of the virus every day. I hope our company survives. I'm 56 years old, and I will lose everything. I don't think I have another startup in me. I just keep repeating to myself, this too will pass. Kevin Thomas of MultiClean Janitorial Services, based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, writes, 27 years. Yes, that's how long I've been in business. My entire adult life, my commercial cleaning business is all that I have known. And now, in the matter of a few weeks, that could possibly be all gone due to a virus that is barely making a dent in the health of America. So far, my company has been forced to lay off over 100 hardworking individuals due to an unrealized fear of the coronavirus. As the government has decided to continue to force businesses to close, this has in turn directly affected my company, MultiClean. The availability to create revenue to pay my employees is not there. The great fearmonger the mainstream media has created and perpetuated this fear. Unfortunately, there are millions of people in our country who follow and believe the media and allow this fear to be fuel for the panic engine across America. Hospitals in my own city of Tulsa, Oklahoma are cutting hours of the staff and having to lay off nurses and medical workers. This makes no sense at all. Where are all the sick people the news is telling us about? Most of our employees literally live paycheck to paycheck. How do I explain to my employees that we don't have money to pay you right now? The only panic that our employees have is the panic of not being able to pay their electricity bill and providing enough food for their family. I believe that the struggle here is not the actual coronavirus, but of political correctness and the insane idea that this shutdown is a good idea for our country. So my question to the government is, at what point does the economy take precedence over a virus that kills less people than the common flu virus every year? Someone needs to step up and say enough is enough. We all need to practice safe distancing, wash our hands, and get back to work. Josh Wilson from Owasso, Oklahoma, the founder of Living Water Irrigation, writes, it's Tuesday evening, March 24th. I'm sitting at my kitchen table with my wife. The conversation begins slowly. Finally, I ask the question, honey, how long can we make it on 0 revenue? Silence. Dead silence. This woman who believes in me with all of her heart The amazing woman that allowed me to follow this journey, the very same woman who has supported me throughout the long days and sleepless nights, and my partner in this ride, she says, I don't know. Whenever I talk about the effect that COVID-19 has on my life, on my business, it is wrapped up in that one conversation. I've had this conversation so many times at this point that I feel like it is rehearsed. Josh, are we going to make it through this? Josh, am I going to be able to keep my job? Josh, are we still working? Josh, how do I maintain a positive attitude? Everyone asks me. If they only knew what is running through my head, the thoughts, the concerns, the worry. Then I snap back. Then I remember that God is still on the throne. I remember Matthew 6. Then I know that I am his. I know that he has brought us this far and he will never leave or forsake me. Yes, the coronavirus has affected our business. Yes, it has affected our lives, but also it has made my faith stronger. It has brought Christ back into the conversation. Living Water Irrigation will press on. We will not fold. We will do our best to serve our community and keep our people employed. Our number one focus is people. It always has been, it always will be. We will be stronger and better. Nathan Severinus of Complete Carpet writes, this is the first time in my 40 years that I have seen something affect the American people's lives in a way that takes away their hope. Even after 9/11, we all gathered together, we gave each other hope and kept the country going. The coronavirus is a tipping point for everyone, I know. Did you get swept away with a tidal wave of news saying the sky was falling, hiding in your homes until the storm blows over? Or did you stand up with a voice of hope and fight? I had to figure out who I was as a father to give hope to my kids. I had to learn what kind of husband I needed to be to give hope to my wife. I was tasked with being a boss and a father to my employees to restore their hope. And finally, I had to choose what kind of business owner my customers needed to be able to have hope in this time of crisis. I needed to receive hope also to be able to give it. I learned quickly I could not rely on any news source to give me hope because they all wanted to quarantine everyone and hide from the virus. If that worked, then the virus wouldn't have left China and would not have spread to 140 plus countries. So I needed another source of hope. I found it in a business podcast called The Thrive Time Show. Every day, Clay was breaking down the actual numbers compared to the hype. He exposed the insane steps we were taking to combat the virus. This is like burning down your home to kill a mouse in the house. They gave real-time advice to business owners for what to do next. Clay empowered us with comparisons that no one else was making, like H1N1. And he asked the tough questions, like why didn't we shut down the country to prevent the spread of H1N1? As a boss and an owner of a carpet cleaning business, I had to give my employees hope every day, because every day the world we live in changes. One day we needed to socially distance. The next day we could only gather in groups of 50 or less. The next day all entertainment venues closed down. The next day all non-essential businesses were told to close. Each day it was a different kind of fear and a loss of hope my employees had questions about. I had to make sure that I had the hope before the day started, and I had the answer before the question was asked, so they could follow my confidence each day. As the owners of a business, my wife and I were tasked with how we message our customers in this time of falling skies. How do we bring hope to our customers without spreading fear? This is a very fine line to walk, because if I go all out in my message about how we are combating the coronavirus, then I'm adding to the fear, because people will see our message and say, see, even the carpet guy is scared. But in this political climate, there are those that say if you are not doing enough, they will call the authorities to make you respond to the pandemic. Each job I went on, I met great people who were struggling to keep life normal. I discovered that I needed to bring hope also to every customer I got to serve. One lady told me that I was the very first person to visit her in over a week. My heart broke. I started searching out hope, trying to find it in the fear of darkness, and I did see people step up and try to be that hope. I'll end with this. As a Christian, this is the first time I've had the government tell me that I cannot meet at church. Maybe I'm old school, but I really believe in our First Amendment right to peaceably assemble, that we are to lay our hands on the sick and that we will recover, and we should have the right to peaceably assemble. Maybe that means instant healing, or maybe we heal their heart because not only are they sick, but no one is willing to go near them. Isolation, I think, is as damaging as any sickness, because you feel like you've been abandoned. Only a few people have the power inside themselves to have hope in the midst of darkness by themselves. That is why I had to step up and start giving hope to everyone I meet. My kids need to know that I have a plan and that they will be safe and secure in the months and years to come. My employees needed hope that they could pay their bills and would not be unemployed. My wife needed a single source of comfort to battle the tidal wave of social media news beating the drum that the sky is falling. We all need to start writing pay-it-forward checks of hope to everyone we meet, because someday we will need someone to write us a check in return. Now, these are just a few of the hundreds of letters that I have received. My friends, hopefully by now you are starting to see why we must take a stand against the overhyping and fear-spreading gossip related to this disease. The real war is not with the coronavirus. It is with the misinformation that we are being fed. It is with the government that is trying, not that shrewdly, to hide behind the fear to take away our rights, our liberties, and everything that made this country great. This country was built on dedication, hard work, and the American dream. This country was built on the idea that the harder you work, the further you get ahead. We cannot stand by and watch everything that our forefathers fought for and died for go to waste on the promises of a great government bailout. This country was built to work, has grown to its greatness on work, and so we need to return to work. It is time for us to stop being led blindly by politicians that are feeding us lies about the coronavirus being so much more deadly than the common flu. It is time to stop listening to our friends and family who are wrong about why we must stay home and shut down our businesses for the greater good. It is time to open our doors again and to start providing the great service and products that our customers need and the handshakes and hugs that we all need. It is time to open our doors again. It is time to get the economy going again, to create jobs, income, wealth, and to get back to doing the one thing that we know how to do best in these great United States, and that is to work, and that is to peaceably assemble. The time to get America back to work again is now. It is now time for you to remind your elected officials of your First Amendment rights to peaceably assemble, just like Martin Luther King Jr. had to do on April 3rd, 1968 at the Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Nobody's stopping me, yeah. Till the day that you set me free, yeah. I'ma only live for what I believe. My way, I'm a wanderer till I find my place. I'm a wanderer. You set my sail on fire. I'm drifting ever higher. My compass in the stars gonna guide me through this world of ours. You set my sail on fire like a la 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 like a wanderer.
Thank you, Colton Dixon, for blessing us with your music. And thank you, Martin Luther King Jr., for blessing us with the example that you set so many years ago. to encourage all Americans to stand up for their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. Chapter 9, the root of the problem. We've talked about the facts of the virus, the misleading information, the grossly overestimated predictions, the unnecessary precautions people are making. We've talked about the result that the misinformation has had on society, how the government-mandated shutdown is destroying the economy and the lives of business owners and their employees everywhere, all over something less deadly than the flu. So how did we get here? Why is it that this time the world is shutting down unlike ever before in modern history? Remember earlier when we talked about the swine flu of 2009 that infected over 60 million Americans and killed 12,469 people? Like most Americans in 2009, you probably were only vaguely aware of it. In fact, everyone that I talked to about it seems to remember not even really hearing about it. But why did you not personally experience any fear or develop any really core memories from that time? The swine flu epidemic was just another virus in the series of viruses that have impacted this earth throughout history. The swine flu, folks, it killed thousands of Americans and infected millions of people. It infected 60 million people. The Center for Disease Control estimates that from April 12, 2009 to April 10, 2010, there were 60.8 million people infected and 12,469 deaths in the United States alone. 274,304 people were hospitalized during this time as well. The Center for Disease Control even estimates that as many as 575,400 people may have died from the virus all around the world. 80% of those deaths occurred in people who are younger than 65 years old. This is actually very different from a typical flu-like virus. Typically, influenza deaths occur predominantly in people 65 years and older. There were plenty of opportunities for the people of our country to have the excuses needed to shut down the country and take away our civil liberties as they're doing now in the name of public health. But that didn't happen. Why wasn't there a freak out in our country? Why is it so different? What is so different about the coronavirus that has everyone freaking out about it, about catching it? The answer? Social media. During the present coronavirus situation, the media is sensationalizing the deaths of younger people, even though 99.2% of the people that actually die from the coronavirus are people who are elderly and people who have pre-existing health conditions. Why didn't our country shut down for the H1N1 virus that was predominantly killing people younger than 65 years old? And why has our country now voluntarily shut down for the coronavirus that is doing the opposite? Could there be another agenda at play? The truth is that there is a huge problem in our country that is having a devastating impact. And I'm not referring to the coronavirus. You see, the media perpetuates fear, and in doing so has done significant damage to our great nation. It isn't the virus that's killing the economy, it's the fear of the virus that's killing the economy. All you have to do is look on Facebook or turn on CNN and you'll quickly recognize what I'm talking about. If you look up headlines today, you'll see articles like Coronavirus, Live Updates, Grim Models Project High U.S. Toll in Months-Long Crisis. Or Live Updates, More people have died in the United States from the coronavirus than in the 9/11 attacks. What's with the scary music? Can we stop with the scary music and the urgent breaking news about our imminent doom? Well, I suppose we could, but then who would watch the nightly news? Why would anybody possibly watch the nightly news 12 hours a day if we weren't freaking people out? Exactly. Almost all headlines in the news communicate a bleak and hopeless future, perpetuating fear and giving lawmakers more power to take away our liberties and keep us locked in our homes. Time magazine has taken a stab at discussing how social media is impacting our fears in response to the coronavirus. They talk about how social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, which didn't exist or barely existed during past major outbreaks, are facilitating important conversations about the virus, while at the same time allowing sensationalism and misinformation to spread. Back in 2009, when the H1N1 was running rampant, people were not spending over 11 hours per day entrenched on media, consuming media on their smartphone devices. This, combined with the fact that pretty much anyone that is alive can get a social media account and therefore has some level of a platform to spout their opinions and their fear-mongering headlines, definitely has contributed to the perpetual fear that Americans have of the coronavirus. The intensely negative bend that the media has towards this situation, plus the constant exposure to these negative perspectives, is an unbeatable recipe for fear. A big question to ask is why the media consistently produces content that is bent towards the negative. The reason is really pretty simple and obvious if you think about it. It's all about those clicks, baby. Sex sells, fear sells, extreme statements, shocking headlines get the attention of the average consumer. In this media and information-saturated world, in order to increase engagement with posts, videos, articles, etc., media has to do something to grab your attention. Unfortunately, good news doesn't get nearly as many views as bad news. A BBC article about this talks about a negativity bias, which is a psychologist term for our collective hunger to hear and remember bad news. Most, if not all, people are addicted to negative and fearful information. The article reports that in lab experiments, flash the word cancer, bomb, or war at somebody, and they can hit a button in response quicker than if the word is baby or smile or fun, despite these pleasant words being slightly more common. We are all also able to recognize negative words faster than positive words. And we can even now tell that a word is going to be unpleasant before we can tell exactly what the word is going to be. It doesn't matter who you are. Most people are wired for negative. Think about that for a second. Think about the implications of that statement for a second. Negativity being the default for most people, combined with the truth that most people, according to Forbes, don't change, is not surprising that as a culture, we've allowed this negative bend of the media to perpetuate. It's also why you're kind of scared as you're listening to this music. Most people that I talk to recognize their need to get off of social media, to put down the burger, to exercise a little, to work harder, but they don't actually make the changes. According to Forbes, one of the reasons for this is because people don't know how to sustain motivation. While the average American might try every once in a while to stay away from negative news, if they don't have that strong internal motivation, then they will go right back to it, just like water flowing downhill. People like to take the path of least resistance, baby. Unfortunately, when our natural tendencies take us to the negative, the path of least resistance is to continue to live addicted to the negativity. In becoming addicted to our phones, we have become a negativity and fear-driven culture, which is why, unlike during the swine flu, the majority of people are endorsing the course of shutting down our country. The probability of the average person dying of the coronavirus, even in the worst-case predictions, is now less lethal than the common flu. See the statistics at thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. Again, that's thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. People are afraid of a virus that is far less likely to kill them than a car accident, than cancer, than heart disease, and the common flu, according to the Center for Disease Control. Shutting down the economy for a virus that is allowing fear to drive decision-making is not the path that we should take. Let's learn from H1N1. Let's turn off the scary news. We're all getting kind of freaked out. We will get through this. But let's not destroy our entire economy and country in the process.
It's been hard. I'm doing my best. Yeah. But you're still right here. Here in my chest. With tears in my eyes and a smile on my face, I think of the moments, remember the ways that you walked through fire and danced in the rain.
Chapter 10, The Cure for Fear.
God only knows I've tried to fight it. It's just a wolf that's always crying.
In a time where we can stay constantly updated with the latest news developments, where our friends are traveling to, or what our favorite cultural icons are up to, we must ask ourselves, has social media, which began as a fun or easy way to stay connected with our friends and family, now become a destructive force in our daily lives? In this chapter, I will break this down like James Brown. Now, we all have anecdotal examples of how social media has had a negative impact on our lives here and there. At one point or another, most of us have become victims of an epic political Facebook clash, a mindless 10-minute scroll on Instagram, or the vortex of Twitter. When dealing with social media in these regards, the solutions are simple. We know not to get into arguments on Facebook because it typically causes the other person to become even more entrenched and committed to their views that differ from ours. Deep down, we know there are 1,000 better ways to spend our time than scrolling through Instagram without thinking. If we're honest with ourselves, we understand that perhaps reading 280 characters at a time on Twitter isn't the best way to understand complex issues. Solving these social media issues is really simple, but do we really understand the deeper negative repercussions this can have on our lives? How many people have you met who are proactively trying to become dumb? Seriously, ask yourself, is there anyone you know that is legitimately working to lower their intelligence, memory, and overall mental cognition? At this first thought, this question obviously seems absurd. With the advent of cognitive training apps like Luminosity and Elevate, we likely think that maybe, generally speaking, people are trying to become more informed and intelligent. Unfortunately, though, the abundant use of social media on our smartphones is causing us to become less intelligent and less focused. According to Dr. Ron Friedman, the social psychologist and contributor to Psychology Today magazine, who specializes in human motivation, studies show that the mere presence of a cell phone, even when it's not being used, influences people's performance on complex mental tasks. The study asked its participants to quickly identify two numbers in a row of digits that would equal a pre-specified total, as in which two numbers that added together equal a total of 6. Half of the participants were asked to keep their phones on their desk. The other half were asked to put their phones away. Even though not a single phone went off during the experiment, participants that had their phones on their desk performed nearly 20% worse than those that had their smartphones put away. Again, there were no notifications or alerts or rings going off for the people that had their cell phones on their desk. If these participants performed 20% worse without the interruptions of notifications, just the mere presence of a phone, imagine how our performance declines even if we have notifications for our social media turned on. Another negative impact of social media is its ability to induce sadness and to contribute towards less life satisfaction through constant use. In her Forbes article, senior Forbes contributor Alice G. Walton references a study performed by the Herbert Curian Pluridisciplinary Institute out of the University of Strasbourg in France that found that moment-to-moment happiness and life satisfaction declines through social media use. The study would survey 82 different people 5 times a day for 14 days to assess their happiness and life satisfaction after using Facebook. The experiment found that the more people use Facebook, the less happy and satisfied they became. What? Researchers have also found that when the participants interacted with other people directly in person, happiness and life satisfaction were not affected. The study concluded that while Facebook seems to fulfill the basic human need for connection, Facebook actually did the exact opposite. It made people feel sad, depressed, dissatisfied, and alone, despite knowing how social media will negatively impact our emotional state. Perhaps you're still not convinced. If these reasons aren't compelling enough, then let's examine what a massive waste of time social media can be. In an article by Carolyn Sun, published by Entrepreneur magazine, it was determined that the average person will spend more than 5 years of their life on social media. Carolyn's article continues to explain another terrifying conclusion this study found. The average person will now spend only 1 year and 3 months over their entire life socializing with friends and family in real life. We will spend 5 times more of our life interacting with people digitally than in our real life. Think about that. Our daily routine of proving people wrong on Facebook and endlessly scrolling through Instagram isn't looking as tempting now, eh? Is it? I mean, does it seem that appealing after looking at this research? CNN Health partnered with child development experts to do a study on the amount of time teenagers spend on social media. The study had over 200 8th graders participate from 8 different schools across 6 different states throughout the country. These students and their parents allowed the researchers to register their Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook profiles to an electronic archiving company CNN contracted. Over a 6-month period, these researchers analyzed 150,000 social media posts. The study found that the more teens use their social media accounts, the more distressed they become, and found that the heaviest social media culprits check their feeds more than 100 times per day. CNN Health also reported that the average teenager's daily time spent on social media is more than their time spent sleeping or in school, a whopping 9 hours. Naval Ravikant, a major Twitter investor and co-founder and former CEO of AngelList, sums up the dangers of social media best with his quote, "I don't think modern science has good answers here. I think that the modern world is actually really bad. The modern world is full of distractions. Things like Twitter and Facebook are not making you happy. They're making you unhappy. You are essentially playing a game that's created by the creators of those systems. And yes, it could be a useful game once in a blue moon, but you are engaging in the dispute and resentment, comparison, jealousy, and anger about things that frankly just don't matter." One of the most destructive traits related to social media that we all have experienced at one time or another is the vicious attacks that seem to happen so quickly when we stand up for our values on social media. Want to update your Facebook status on your stance against abortion? Well, prepare for a tidal wave of hate, vitriol, and negativity to fill your comment feed. Do you dare tweet about how the world might be overreacting to the coronavirus pandemic just a little bit? Right now, I've seen responses where numerous people have called me evil, anti-Christian, a murderer, somebody who cares more about business than human lives. And that's just for sharing the facts. We now live in an age where people are more concerned about appearing right to the masses on social media rather than actually holding an established set of core values by which they live their lives and make decisions. In the liberal media, conservatives are often portrayed as intolerant, uneducated, and racist bigots, which then influences the way people act on social media. While the left often self-righteously prides itself on standing up for the rights of those who are mistreated in society, it seems they hypocritically mistreat others while advocating for their own views. I recently interviewed Mark Manson, the best-selling author of the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Boop, on my podcast, The Thrive Time Show. During the show, I asked Mark to break down why people reject good values in our world of political correctness. His response was on point. He said, "We simply aren't aware of our values. I think part of it is just all the distraction from the technology and phones and blah, blah, blah. We've become so caught up in just this autopilot that we don't even realize what our priorities are a lot of the time." Then I think the second thing that happens a lot, and I think that is driven primarily by social media, is that we like to portray certain values, perhaps online or to each other, that we don't necessarily live or embody or act on in our real lives. I think the problem is the media environment in general is rewarding that right now. It's rewarding self-righteousness and moral outrage. It prompts that behavior and that attitude towards people. I think those with right-wing views have had their own dose of this reality of that in the last 10 years. But I think right now it's the left's turn to really just scold everybody, as if they're everybody's mother or something like that. What I hear Mark saying here is that people are willing to operate within a flexible morality, a morality that changes based upon how we feel in the moment. People are more concerned with being socially validated for what they believe than actually believing in anything at all. If we disagree with what someone says on social media, it's now socially acceptable to say a myriad of hurtful and false things in order to destroy that person's character and reputation publicly. Whether we like it or not, it's now acceptable to not only operate this way, but if what you say is hurtful enough, you'll get likes for it. Because of the world that we live in, constantly plugged into social media, it is no wonder that the fear of the coronavirus spread like, well, a virus. People who have done literally no research on the topic automatically get to become so-called experts and share articles that have a headline that they think proves their point, but they never have even read the entire article. To fight this, I have provided some action steps that you can take to stop surrounding yourself with fear and negativity. These are action steps you can take today. 1, delete all social media apps linked to your phone. What action steps should you take right now to cure the disease and the destruction of social media addiction? The first and frankly most powerful yet simple step is to delete all of those gosh darn mother-loving social media apps. Try a wild experiment today. Delete all of your social media apps. I promise you won't die. Delete them. Delete all of them. Don't even think about it. Just do it. If you think too much about it, your mind will try to justify why you need to keep them, or perhaps you'll create reasons why social media doesn't negatively impact you. But just try it just for one day. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did you really miss? I believe that you'll find out that the answer is, frankly, you didn't miss much. In fact, you'll find that your days are so much more fulfilling, productive, and purposeful by not being a slave to social media. Action item number 2, turn off your notifications. As a business coach who has worked with hundreds of companies around the nation, one of my biggest pet peeves is to hear clients say, "I don't have enough time to get that done." It's an excuse that's easy to use, but it's simply not true. You do have the time. You just haven't taken the right actions. You always have the time for what's important if you know how to organize this time. A practical action step that you can take right now to free up your free time is to turn off all of your notifications, like I did. To record this audiobook, I had to turn off my phone. I haven't been reachable at all while I've been recording this book with you. If you are struggling to find time to get the important things done, like to record an audiobook, you'll find that getting rid of the constant distractions and notifications will help you to create the hours of more time you need to succeed. By not having your notifications turned on, you'll also forget to check your social media accounts and stop the incessant cycle of mindlessly being on your social media to stay informed. Action step number 3, put your phone away when getting stuff done. The last simple action step that can dramatically help you in your overall level of productivity and your overall happiness is putting your smartphone away when getting stuff done. While performing work for your customers or trying to knock out a big project or recording an audiobook like this, studies have shown that if you have your phone near you, your mental cognition will decrease by 20%. This can lead to countless problems, making errors on your work, creating costly mistakes on projects, and being mentally absent with customers that are paying for 100% of your time and your mind and your products and your service. Increase your happiness. Save time. Stand up for what's right, and get off of your phone. If you put your phone away, I can promise you 2 things, and those are, first, you will find yourself getting much more done. And second, the world will not cease to rotate while you're doing it. It's okay to turn your smartphone on airplane mode. It's okay to turn your smartphone off. It's okay to leave your smartphone in your car to get stuff done. Action item number 4, batting cleanup. Look past the alarming headlines. If you take all these steps, the fact of the matter is a lot of the other people won't. So in a sense, you will still be surrounded by fear-mongering social media posters. When you inevitably see an alarming headline about coronavirus and the state of the world, look past the panic. Read the article and then go deeper. Look at the citations referenced in the article. Read the articles through the lens of knowing that the media profits from your fear and hysteria. Fear is contagious, but digging deeper and educating yourself will keep you immune. If more people were more passionate about finding the truth and the facts about the coronavirus than just trying to share piffy headlines, maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't find ourselves clamoring for the government to bail us out right after they violated our First Amendment right to peaceably assemble.
My compass in the stars gonna guide me through this world of ours. You set my sail on fire like a la 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 like a wanderer.
The conclusion. President Ronald Reagan once said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same."
But only here did that little band of men so advanced beyond their time that the world has never seen their like since, evolve the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
As a country, our combined overreaction and panic-filled responses to the virus on social media has now given our local, state, and federal elected officials our implied consent to violate our constitutional and First Amendment right to peaceably assemble anytime that they choose to do so. You were told that you couldn't go to church on Easter for your safety. You might have been told that you couldn't go to work for your safety. And your personal liberty was certainly imposed upon by your state or local government for your safety. And although one of the most notable founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, once famously warned us to never be willing to give up our personal liberty in exchange for a little temporary safety, we did just that with the lack of caution and common sense that is typical of mob rule. When Benjamin Franklin once famously wrote, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety," he wasn't joking around or sarcastically speaking. It's worth repeating. Benjamin Franklin once famously wrote, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." He was being both serious and direct with the Americans of the time and with you. He was warning you that anyone who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. Yet as a country, we have now set the very dangerous precedent that we as Americans are willing to give up nearly all of our essential liberties for even just potential temporary safety from a virus that a non-American director of a Saudi Arabian-backed institute predicted might possibly cost 2.2 million American lives. During this coronavirus panic, we now have provided corrupt politicians, aspiring dictators, and those who do not have your best interest in mind with the proven plan and the blueprint for how to shut down our economy and how to convince the vast majority of Americans to willingly give over their essential liberty that countless American soldiers have died to protect. It has now been proven that the next time another potential panic, crisis, or potential crisis presents itself, that every American now has a platform, whether they earned it or not, called social media, that can be used to virally spread panic and fear. And once Americans are scared, they begin to skim the headlines and go light on the facts and heavy on spreading their panic-filled feelings on social media. When our founding fathers signed the Constitution, they didn't include an addendum to the First Amendment that read, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, unless we believe that a report being produced by organizations that don't have our best interests in mind that are telling us we should shut it down," a.k.a. the report being produced and being shared with everybody by Neil Ferguson, who is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, which was founded by the Saudi Arabian by the name of Mohammed Abdul Latif Jameel, whose home country is Saudi Arabia, whose country we are currently engaged in an oil price war with. I want you to ask yourself the following question with passionate enthusiasm. Why are we referring to this as COVID-19 and not COVID-18 or COVID-12? The truth of the matter is that this is not the first time a new or novel strain of the coronavirus has impacted the planet and the people living on it. You see, on this great planet, there are unfortunately many different types of human coronaviruses, and some of which cause minimal upper respiratory tract illnesses. However, the COVID-19, the coronavirus, the COVID-19, is a new novel disease that has previously not been seen in humans on our planet up to this point. However, with the previous scares, we did not shut our great country down. And as a response to the 2009 swine flu that infected 60.8 million Americans, according to the Center for Disease Control, we did not shut America down either. But with COVID-19, we did shut it down. We did shut it down. And we shut it down without really even knowing what COVID-19 means, how many people it was going to kill, and why we were so panicked to begin with. Personally, I am unsettled by the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci's comments of, "We have to be prepared when the infections start to rear their heads again." I am mentioning this because we are going to have another new novel virus that is going to scare us next year. The sooner that you and I can come to grips with the fact that even the common flu, that the mass media currently hasn't decided to turn into an endless breaking news cycle, killed 80,000 Americans in 2017 and 2018 alone. You and I must resolve in our minds that we shall never again allow our hard-fought for American rights to be stripped away under the guise of safety. In order to not lose our essential liberties, you must be aware of them and be willing to stand up for them and to fight for them. You and I must both step up and fight back against those that would wish to strip us of our essential liberties in the name of keeping us safe. We have to understand that we are going to get hit with another COVID-type virus. And when we do, we have to make the decision right now to not allow fear to dictate our actions and to allow us to give up control of our lives. The next time something scary happens, we must commit to getting off of social media and getting into the act of gathering the facts. We must refuse to sob and to join the ignorant mob. We must simply hit pause long enough to gather the facts before we decide on how we are going to act. We cannot allow our freedoms to be easily stripped away from us as we did this time. We must stand up for something or we will be willing to fall for anything. Moving forward, we must invest the time needed to appropriately unmask the fear. The fear-mongering social media posts and the panic-producing mainstream media, which now specializes in serving you scary headlines. As the fear and panic related to the coronavirus panic subsides, we are now left to deal with the real results of our government's overreaction to the coronavirus. It's sad, but think about how much we have let this COVID-19 panic truly impact us as Americans. I've put together a list of just a few of the ways that we as Americans have allowed this coronavirus government response to impact our lives. Without a bullet being fired by our enemies, we gave up our constitutional rights to peaceably assemble. We allowed ourselves to essentially be put under house arrest and grounded by our governors without committing a crime. And without amending our Constitution, we made it illegal and immoral to go to work and to attend church. Without surrendering as a result of a takeover from a hostile government, we allowed foreign organizers to tell people how we should react, including the World Health Organization and the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, headed up by Neil Ferguson. Without a vote being taken or a law being passed, 22 million Americans were forced to lose their jobs as of the time of the recording of this audiobook. In order to slow the spread of the coronavirus, you were forced to pay for the public school that your kids were not allowed to attend while the teachers still got paid. And you can no longer take your kids to the public parks, which you were forced to pay for with your tax dollars. As a result of the coronavirus mandated shutdown of large portions of the economy, many business owners were forced to get a government loan in order to survive. The Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Disaster Loans and Loan Advance provided by the federal government and the Small Business Administration. Take away a man's pride and you increase the chances of a man's suicide. The National Hotline providing emergency help to people suffering from emotional distress has received nearly 9 times more calls than it did at the same time last year, with tens of thousands of Americans reaching out for assistance amid the coronavirus crisis, according to U.S. officials. As a result of our response to the coronavirus and our local, state, and federal government's obsession with quarantining ourselves at home, alcoholic beverage sales shot up 55%, according to both CNN and Newsweek. In order to limit the spread of the coronavirus, every student has now been forced to miss out on 1/4 of their school year. This means that every American student has now had to sacrifice 1/48 of their formal education to limit the spread of the coronavirus that has been shown time and time again to be less lethal than the common flu to kids, adults, and to everyone, except for those who have a compromised immune system and those who are elderly. The scare of the coronavirus, combined with the government shutdowns, quarantines, and a safer-at-home order from your governor or mayor, these orders have created tremendous decline in the number of overall patients visiting medical facilities, and thus American healthcare professionals are being laid off, furloughed, and cut by the thousands as the revenues of medical facilities plummet to historic lows. The coronavirus has already cost America $6.2 trillion of government stimulus spending, and it's likely to cause inflation. So in order for us to move forward with our lives and to live without fear in a social media and mainstream-filled world that is still buzzing with the coronavirus conspiracy theories and the predictions of the next pandemic that could quickly cripple us again, we must be able to quickly recap the facts that both caused and paused the coronavirus panic so that we can logically come to the decision that there is nothing to fear except the panic itself. The virus, folks, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 coronavirus, is killing less people than the flu. The shutdown will harm more people than the virus will. The headlines aren't telling the whole truth. During the fear-induced media hysteria, we are being fed misinformation about the virus and its effects. This is causing irrational actions to be taken, such as shutting down cities and issuing shelter-in-place orders. The economy, and therefore the American people, will suffer more from the temporary closing of businesses than we will from the coronavirus. And the culprit that is causing the mass-produced hysteria? The media, the news outlets, the celebrities, the social media. Fear is spread faster now due to our addiction to our smartphones and our proclivity towards fear as humans, and the media feeds into that and profits off of all of it. The cure for this pandemic of ignorance is educating yourself with the facts. Headlines often misconstrue facts. Look deeper. Look deeper. Press in to figure out what is actually going on. Look at the facts. Don't buy into fear. It will cost you more than you know. Fear kills joy. Fear extinguishes hope. And fear reduces your ability to think logically. We have to get back to normal and to do what we do best, which is work. And it all starts with knowing the facts, which are the only things that kill fear. So what now? My friend, unmasking the fear starts with you. It starts with you informing yourself of the facts. Then it starts with you informing your family of the facts. It starts with looking deeper than the attention-grabbing headlines. Yes, fear is contagious, but so is confidence and enthusiasm. The word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word that originally meant God within. The word theos meaning God in theos. People with enthusiasm were thought to be people who had God living within them. When you have enthusiastic confidence, you simply cannot lose when it comes to vaccinating your friends and family from the coronavirus panic and the coronavirus-inspired fear. If you exude confidence in the truth, you will successfully unmask the fear.
No doubt about it. I'ma go where the spirit leads it. Ain't nobody stopping me. I'm on my way, I'm a wanderer. Till I found my place, I'm a wanderer. You set my sail on fire. I'm drifting ever higher. So look up, my compass in the stars, gonna guide me through this world of ours. You set my sail on fire, like a la 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 la, like a wanderer.
Exhibit B. 10 quarantine jokes that are probably too soon that will help you to forget the fact that you are stuck at home or that you were stuck at home. Here we go. Joke number 1. With nothing to do at home, I'm sure that many people are busy doing the horizontal mambo, thus making a big baby boom happen. So I would like to nominate in 2032 that we start calling these new babies the quarantines. Joke number 2. That's probably too soon. Do you want to hear a joke about the coronavirus? You probably wouldn't get it. Joke number 3. So you mean to tell me that you didn't stock up on toilet paper? Well, you're out of luck now. They're all wiped out. Joke number 4. Folks, I promise they get better as we go here. What's the difference between a Taco Bell meal and the coronavirus? Well, you actually have a valid reason for toilet paper hoarding with Taco Bell. Joke 5. Day 30 without sports. Found a lady sitting on my couch yesterday. Apparently, she's my wife. She seems pretty cool. Joke number 7. Hopefully they make a movie about this coronavirus scare, directed by Quentin Quarantino. Joke number 8. They said that a mask and gloves were enough to go to the supermarket. They lied. Everyone else had their clothes on. So I've been asked to never come back. Joke number 9. Did you know that Chuck Norris got exposed to the coronavirus? Well, the coronavirus is now under a strict stay-at-home order for a month. Joke number 10. The official social distancing rule. If you can smell their fart, move further apart. Whoa. Joke number 11. What's the difference between the coronavirus and Bigfoot? You might catch Bigfoot. Okay, I get it. Some of you don't think these are very funny. But let me tell you what. We are now throwing in a bonus recipe for a stiff quarantini. And let me tell you, after 2 of these, reread these jokes, and you will probably laugh. All right, a quarantini. This serves 1. Ingredients. 2.5 ounces of gin or vodka. a half ounce of dry vermouth, ice, lemon peel twist, or olives for garnish. Now, here are the steps, folks, so take notes on this. This is some serious stuff here, all right, for shaken, not stirred. We aren't animals after all, right? So step 1, chill the glass. Before you build your quarantini, put your quarantini glass in the freezer to chill. Step 2, build the drink. Place the gin or vodka and dry vermouth in a cocktail shaker. Step 3, shake the drink. Add cubed ice and shake vigorously for 10 seconds. Step 4, strain the drink. Step 5, garnish the drink. Pare a lemon peel and express pinch and back of the lemon peel over the quarantini. Rub the lemon peel around the rim and the glass and drop it into the glass. Alternatively, garnish with speared olives. Enjoy. About the author, a.k.a. me. My name's Clay Clark, and I'm the host of the iTunes chart-topping podcast, The Thrive Time Show, the former United States Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year for the great state of Oklahoma, and an author of 15 books, the co-founder of 5 Human Kids, and the founder of several multi-million-dollar companies. Throughout the years, I've been featured on Forbes, Fast Company, Bloomberg TV, Bloomberg Radio, Business Insider, Yahoo Finance, Pando Daily, Entrepreneurs on Fire, Fox, ABC, etc. I've been a contributing writer for Entrepreneur.com and Forbes.com with a focus on both entertaining and educating. Yahoo Finance has described me as the Jim Carrey of entrepreneurship. Throughout my career, I've been the award-winning entertainer, educator, and speaker of choice for many of the world's top companies, including Hewlett-Packard, Southwest Airlines, UPS, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Bama Companies, Boeing, Farmers Insurance, New York Life Insurance, Maytag University, Oral Roberts University, OxyFresh, Quick Trip, Valspar, and countless other companies and organizations looking to engage, entertain, and educate their people en route to growing their organization. I appreciate you investing the time to listening to this book, and I would encourage you to check out my other titles that are available on Amazon.com. And I also want to take a special moment to thank Jonathan Kelly for helping me produce this book. Without Jonathan Kelly's assistance and help, this book would have taken a lot longer to produce, and perhaps we might have never been able to produce this book. I also want to thank my literary agent, Esther Federkevich, for believing in this project and for being willing to produce a book in a very, very short period of time because she believed that you, the listener, deserved to know the truth as soon as possible. I also want to thank Devin Woolery for helping me produce the content for the show and making sure the recording studio was working fine and the mic levels were done correctly. I want to thank Andrew Bloomer for producing the promotional video used to promote this book. And I want to thank my beautiful wife, Vanessa Clark, for all of the work that you've done to support me, to uplift me, and to allow me the time and space needed to create this book. And I owe a massive amount of gratitude to my client and friend, Colton Dixon, who allowed me to utilize his music for the production of this audiobook. Check his music out. Do a Google search today. His name is Colton Dixon. And now, without any further ado, I like to end everything I ever do with a boom, because boom stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. And so without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!